Going to call to order the council budget workshop, March 18th, 2023 at 8 a.m., 501 Main Street, Keokuk, Iowa. First on the list is motion to approve promotion to police captain.
So moved.
A second.
It's the police captain. You want to explain?
Do we know who it is?
Yeah, you guys have, the list has been certified, the promotional list, and we're ready to promote somebody. It's going to result in a wage increase for that particular person. There's nothing. You guys already approved the promotional list. We're just ready to promote somebody to the captain vacancy that was created when I was appointed chief. It's gonna be a wage increase for that person, but it's all budgeted, so. Yeah, but all parties have not been notified yet. Yeah, I'm not gonna put it out there, no.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to remind everybody that we are streaming this live for YouTube. So if you have a question or you have a comment or something like that, do turn on your mic. There were some comments last time that they couldn't hear people because mics weren't on. Okay. Start off, there's a couple of.
Real quick, I just wanted to let the council know that we had to close down the alley behind 13th Street, or behind sites, at 13th Street, just in case you get phone calls. All the rain that we had made their hole where they've dug out them tanks. It's left off real bad and undermined the alley, so.
So we have a couple issues to discuss as far as the budget concerning hotel motel tax and salaries. But what I wanted to do first was just kind of go through the summaries so you can see where we're at right now, and then make your decision on those two items towards the end. One thing is you do have a updated revenue summary and an updated balance sheet. Going through the budget last night, trying to find highlights for you. I realized that I budgeted the bonds for the streets, both in re-estimated for this year and revenues for next year. Well, we're going to get them this year, so I corrected and took it out for the upcoming year. So it's only in there once. So it changes in capital projects, it changes the ending balance and changes the overall revenues. Once I did that, I found out that my summary is not matching up to the accounting system, in that the accounting system shows $17,515 more than what my summaries do, which means my summaries are either not picking up something or I have something misentered because the accounting system is correct. So there's another $17,515 in revenue that I've got to find and put into the summaries. Okay, so when you look at that, I'm not sure which fund it's in. I don't know if it's in general fund or the proprietary funds or where. So I'll go back and recheck that. Okay. So in looking at the summaries, we start with the general fund. As you know, we were waiting for the state to come down and tell us what the change was going to be as far as the valuations. They did pass the bill and took the residential rollback down further. The total result is a loss of $131,000 in change in property tax revenue in the general fund. We do make up some of that in that the state right now, when they changed how the business tax credit was being administered from businesses applying for that tax and getting a rebate to making it universal and making the rebate back to cities, we do pick up some of that, but not all of it. So you will see that there is a big reduction in the property tax on line 1. The replacement tax is also affected because um, of the change in asking and in the levies and in the valuations of the uh, railroad and the electric utilities and gas utilities. The state requires that we split out our franchise fees, so you now see a separate line item as to where those are coming in. The increase in the rate is calculated in there, noting that not all of that revenue is captured because we're rebating back portions of that to the industries. So when we get to expenditures, we'll look at that. In
I have a quick
license,
question about the gaming tax. I think Kathy had mentioned that the circ board had contacted her about us putting gaming tax in general funds.
When they talked to me, and Cole, I think, has talked to Dave Schwartz since then, they called and their question was where our gaming money went, goes through tourism and comes here, and ours goes into the general fund. I don't know if you've had a conversation with them since then, Cole, but they were concerned that other communities don't put all theirs into the general fund. They put some into like using for earmark for grants, that kind of stuff. And they were a little concerned maybe when they presented it to the higher ups that they wouldn't be happy that it all went to the general fund. And I don't know where that went from there.
well, I did talk to them, because it goes into the general fund, it can be classified as supporting our public safety, which is something that they, something that they like, but they also like other things. Because it gets commingled, there are park projects, there are housing initiatives within there, such as supporting the vacant housing, and that was acceptable to Dave Schwartz.
So the other communities, how do they operate their gaming funds?
What's that?
How do the other communities operate their gaming funds?
According to Dave, what they do is they do earmarks with them.
For instance, it would be like we do our hotel motel tax in the
Correct.
aspect of supporting nonprofits and community and economic development.
Correct.
Thank you.
As you go down here, we do pick up a little bit of on use of money and property because interest rates are up. The state grants, the local grants, and the federal grants. When you look at those reflect the grants that we projected to receive for the Riverfront Trail in this year, but the Riverfront Trail is now moving to next year. So in the reestimate, you see reductions in those grants, and then in the upcoming year, you see where those are rebudgeted. For federal grants under reestimated, a good portion of that's there is due to the FAA grant that we received for the airport. Because it was split between a couple of years, that bulk of it was actually in this year rather than last year where we had it.
Those monies, though, are earmarked for those specific purposes.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
like is some of it like for the 600 block, those things?
That'll come up in another fund, but yes.
Okay, all right, but those local grants that are in there are earmarked?
Yes.
Those monies are earmarked?
Correct. When we get grants, they're for specific projects. We cannot just use them for anything. There were some questions that I received, so we'll go ahead and talk about this now. The questions received about the upper story housing grant of why can't we just use it for this or use it for that? And I told the questioning party that it's specific to upper story housing. We can't use it for demolition. We can't use it for the roof. It has to go towards the creation of the upper story housing. So we have specific things in those grant agreements that says that we can spend it on, and that's what we have to do.
So, and I don't, maybe this is not the right time for this question, but so why do we keep that in the general fund instead of earmark that into another line item? Because right now it looks like we have that much money in the general fund, which we do, but we can't use it.
The reason is because of accounting. It's a project within the parks, and so that's where we bring it in. We could put it under capital projects, but quite honestly, in the past, for every project that came up, they created a new fund. And so we had 8, 9 funds sitting there, and what was happening is that early when I got here and before I got here, staff members didn't know where to put something, so they threw it into that fund. And so it's much easier for accounting procedures to put it all into the general fund and do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It's the miscellaneous line item.
Miscellaneous, just a second, I will get I knew somebody was going to ask that question. So let me get to the license permits. So within miscellaneous, what you have in there is, so funeral escorts, police department forfeitures, miscellaneous charges to the library, River Museum fees, overnight camping, 4, 5. Oh, that's other fees. I'm sorry. No, what you have in there is police service reimbursements, court fines, fuel sales for the airport, which are 190,000. Then you have, sorry, following my pages here. You have $100,000 that is the Wellmark grant for the trail. And then you have a $60,000 refund that we're projecting that we'll get from ITC for River Road when they're done with their project.
There's $1 million of miscellaneous.
Yeah, because we can't put them somewhere else. So the fuel sales are in there of 190,000. There's a grant of 100,000, so that takes up 290.
Then 60,000 from ITC.
Yes.
And what's the other?
Oh, and then there's, I'm sorry, then this is where we put the insurance payment from
Waterworks.
from the water department of 650,000.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The court cost, is that a new projection or is that one from the past?
The court costs, where did I put it at? I put the court costs right now, the magistrate fines at 20,000. Just to see it's kind of a placeholder. If we start to get more, then we'll amend it later on, and then for next year's budget, we'll adjust it.
Okay.
We did have it at 40,000 for this year, but of course, we needed to change the ordinance and get to that point. So right now I'm just taking a stab in the dark.
Okay. I do, for everyone's just knowledge, I think that is drastically under. It's a safe thing to do, but it will be drastically under
Right.
with the new ordinance.
So when you get down to the end for the general fund, well, we'll go through our transfers here real quick. We're getting $150,000 in from the ARPA. We've already received the money, but we're transferring it over from the ARPA fund to the general fund, and that is going towards demolition of housing, of dilapidated housing. The emergency levy, it's lower than last year because right now, employee benefits and emergency levy, 2 things. One, we're not getting as much out of the emergency levy, the 27 cents, because of that is affected by the rollback. But in employee benefits, I am using $193,000 in reserves to buy down the debt service, or buy down the tax levy just a little bit. Local option sales tax, I am estimating a little lower, simply because the state has switched from projected payments to actual receipts. So before, what they would do is they'd come out and they say, we think you're going to get this much in the next year, and they'll pay us that. And then in November, they would do a reconciliation where either they adjusted down because we got too much from their projections, or they give us a bonus because their projections were too low. They switched over this last November to providing monthly the actual collections. What we've seen is a slight downtick in that. So until we get some history of how the actual collections are coming in, I've brought it down just a little bit. With the history for this last year since November, we're still around that 1.3 million mark, and I think we'll probably be over that, but I don't know how much. And then out of the park improvement fund, again, this was another one where we were having some accounting problems. We've rectified that as well. The money would come into Fund 002, but never was getting transferred over to the general fund 001. So that was the money being spent on the donations that came in, such as benches or trees, K-Play, were being deposited in that 002 account, but were coming out of the park budget. So we have moved to set up an expense account in the 002 fund so that this doesn't happen again. But these amounts here are being transferred over for past and some upcoming projects, such as the Rand Park Pond is being, is the pond being split between two, or the surfacing? The surfacing. Okay, so what you see there is the is that $18,487 is one half of the resurfacing of the Rand Park Playground. The first half is included in the 164,375 under reestimates. Okay. And then the annual sewer fund to support the general fund of $250,000. So including the reimbursement from Waterworks for their health insurance, total receipts and transfers in the general fund are $11,848,751. If you, I will split out what is operational and what is capital in that, so that you have a clear understanding of how much of operational funds we have from last year to this year. Okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay. In special revenues, the property tax you see there is the emergency fund and the employee benefits. Again, using some transfers out of there in order to keep the debt service down just a little bit. The estimations for local option sales tax. We do get some interest. So that's where you see the money, use of money in property. The road use tax is up by approximately $40,000. We were hoping to get a little more, but this is what's coming in. I can tell you that the trend sometimes is if the gas prices stay down a little bit during the summer, we can end up getting more. The state grants, that is for, some of that is for the $300,000. Half of the $600,000 for the targeted neighborhood planning. So that's coming in there. The rest of that is the gas and electric replacement tax. No, replacement tax is up there already, so it's not that. It's the backfill coming in that's slowly being reduced, and the business tax credit rebate. I'm sorry.
Sorry, is that put under state grants, you said?
That's under state grants. That's where they code it for.
Okay.
So the business tax credit and the backfill comes in under those state grants, as well as the half of that $600,000. So the backfill and the business tax credit is $166,065. And then as we come down here, some of the you see the transfers in, those cover, if I look at my transfer sheet real quick. So coming into that fund, oh, that is the 292 688. That is the portion from the employee benefits levy that goes to road use tax to support their benefits. And then 62,900 of that is for KEDC and for support of the Port Authority. Our tax increment financing collections are down. We've lost $65,000 from approximately $65,000 from last year to this year. That is due to all of the tax credits and the change in the rollback. The thing that affected us the most is the business tax credit. Where you see state grants, that is what estimated we got back in those business tax credits. Also, the other thing is that if we have any multi-housing within the TIF district, because we do have some, multi-housing is no longer taxed as commercial. It is now taxed at the residential rate. So we lost valuation on that as well. The rollback affects the general fund the most because that encompasses every property, and so all of the I calculated last night we gained almost 2% in total tax valuations, but we lost almost 4% in taxable valuations. Say that you have to turn on your mic too.
Sorry. And the transfers in, should the rollback included in that be in the general fund?
From out of employee benefits?
Yep.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, everything
so this is
everything
still
we
in-
budgeted for revenue coming into employee benefits and tax and emergency tax is being transferred to the general fund. But we also added $193,000 to the general fund so that or to the general fund out of the reserves in the employee benefits levy, so that we kept the property tax levy down just a little bit.
I just wondered because it was listed under special revenues instead of under the general fund.
Correct. So what it is the state requires us to show the revenues coming into the fund that they come, and they also require us to show transfers from one fund to another. Because it comes in under special revenues, I think Fund 160 or somewhere around there. So anyway, the state requires that we show that transfer between funds. So when we get to the expenditure side, what you will see is an expenditure corresponding to the amount that we're transferring over.
Okay, but this transfer does go into the general fund.
Yes, yes, for the benefits levy and the emergency tax levy. Okay, when it as far as the TIF, that goes into to pay for expenses. We do transfer a lot of that TIF into the debt service because there are several bonds that TIF monies were pledged towards. And we use it to support the development center. In debt service, of course, you see the large increase in the property tax due to having to make the sewer revenue funds as general obligation. There you see the replacement tax, and you see the intergovernmental, which again is the backfill and the business tax credit. You see how much we are transferring in from TIF for total receipts of $3,144,235. So when we get to capital projects, the $15,000 that you see there as use of money and property is our portion of the rent from the development center, from the current tenant, Freeze Dried USA. Under intergovernmental, the $960,000 is the earmark we're getting from Miller Meeks. And you see the proceeds of debt. And again, if you look at the revised revenue page, because my page right now shows the proceeds of debt coming in 2 years. So it's zero in, should be zero in fiscal year 23-24, but have the full amount in the reestimate for 22-23. And the transfers there, I believe, are, let me see here real quick. Gotta find it here. That is coming from TIF, and that is the amount to support the development center, plus also our portion of going towards paving of the cemetery roads. If you're not familiar, Hickey Contracting donates the machinery and labor. We pay for the concrete, and our pledge is $30,000 a year. So in the permanent fund, that is our perpetual fund, for perpetual care for the cemetery. I had a question the other day from the department head asking, we've got all that money in there, can we use some of it? And the last I knew, and I still have to check with the state to be sure and check the state code, because he just asked me yesterday right before I was ready to leave, can we use any of that for fixing stuff at the cemetery? The last I remember, because I had just started my job when the state made the change in this, the last I remember is that you can't. That you just have to maintain that fund for perpetuity, perpetual. But I'm checking to see if we can use any of it, but the way I remember it was no. But 1/2 of all cemetery lot sales has to go into the perpetual care fund. That's by state law. The reasoning for that is back in the late 80s, there was a private cemetery run by a funeral home firm. They would pre-sell their funerals and their plots. They went bankrupt And so there was a lot of people who had put in $10,000, $20,000 and lost all that. So the state came through and said, if you're a perpetual care cemetery, and they classified what perpetual care was, that you have to maintain this fund, and half of all sales have to go in there. At that time, cities argued that, we're not going to go bankrupt. And the state says, we don't care, your perpetual care, you still have to put half in there. So when we get down to sewer fees, you'll see the class 1 sewer fees are greatly reduced. And this is from the industries. There may be some additional there as we go through and see what is required get our baselines for the testing. That may increase, but I think that the 150 there is fairly accurate. Class 2 sewer fees includes a 10% increase on residential rates. And for an explanation of why the ordinance hasn't been passed before, it did get to me in February. I was waiting. I decided to wait until we had our budget meetings because it included that 10% increase for residential, so that if there were any questions, I didn't want to bring the ordinance forward, have you approve the 10% increase, and then have questions on the budget. Okay, so that is why I have it ready. I can bring it forward at the next meeting, have a workshop on it to go through it, however you want to do it. But I did get that late February. I didn't bring it forward because I included the 10% residential increase. So then we get down to some of the other stuff in there. Refuse collection. Projecting an increase based upon a dollar per month increase starting July 1. That'll be our last increase for the next 2 or 3 years. Under railroad revenue, we continue to be around that 250, 245 amount based upon the number of cars taken across. It is not the amount necessary in order to sustain the operations of the bridge. We continue to try to negotiate with the owner of KJ on various other things and trying to get them to come forward. I have contacted several people there, and the response has been slow coming. We've talked with the DOT. They sent a message to the person that we're supposed to be talking to, and they haven't got a response. So we've been working on this for 2.5 years to try to get try to work with the railroad to see what we can do to boost revenues or reduce them. At one point, we had 3 employees in that department. We've reduced it to 2. We were trying to find ways to reduce it to 1 and pay for 1 out of some other funds, but that didn't work out. So right now, this is where we stand.
What are the transfers in?
The transfers in, that is, for whatever reason, we pay. For some reason, when this came up, the council decided that they were going to pay for our support of C-Bus out of the bridge fund. So what it is the money comes into the general fund. So we're transferring that $8,000 from the general fund to the bridge fund to pay for that. In the future, we'll try to correct it to take it out of the bridge fund and just pay it directly from the general fund. But for right now, because of a lot of the other accounting things that we were doing, we're leaving it there for now.
Okay. I have another question. When I did the tours with the park department and the street department, and we were talking about the bridge and everything, and I might be confused, but are the mowers for the parks paid out of the bridge fund?
In the past, when there was sufficient money, some of the equipment was paid for out of the bridge fund.
Okay.
But as of right now, no capital is coming out of the bridge fund.
Okay. Thank you.
So again, when you look at revenues by fund, there's a breakdown here, revenues by fund. And again, that total there is going to be different. You should have an updated there, but again, there's $17,515 additional revenue that I got to figure out if it's something in my spreadsheet or I didn't enter something correctly. When I did this originally and sent it out to you, I thought everything matched, but evidently my eyes are getting worse than I thought, and I missed something. And then when you break down the revenues by source, you'll see that we get 6.2 million in property tax, a little over $1 million in tax increment financing, other city taxes, and this includes the franchise fees of and local option sales tax of 3.3 million in change. The replacement tax, so this is for gas and electric and railroad. We get $1.1 million from that. That is dependent upon what our levy rate is and what the valuations of the property is. Licenses and permits, use of money and property, that's all rents. Any receipts for interest in that aspect. Intergovernmental, so this is going to include any of the grants that we're receiving. It's going to include the business tax credit, anything like that, and it's 4.4 million and change. Our charges for services, this is anything from when somebody comes in and wants a police report and we charge them for the police report or copies at the police department, to all the charges in the proprietary funds. And then the miscellaneous is anything that isn't otherwise categorized. That does include the $650,000 coming from Waterworks for the insurance reimbursement. It's a little over $1 million. Don't look at the bond and debt issued for this year, because again, that was my mistake. And then our transfers in, again, what it is the state requires us to show that as revenue from one fund to the other. And then on the other side, you'll see an equal amount in expenditures of transfers out. Okay. And I believe I wrote down somewhere what our new revenue actually is. Let me get there. The new projected revenue is $26,965,742. That's minus the $4,995,000. Okay. Any questions on revenues? Mike?
You said, so the $31,943 and 943, blah, 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 that's not the correct number? The 26,948 is?
The 26,000 is.
26 million, I mean, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
is the correct number, because it takes out that that 4,995,000, and I got that number from the accounting system. So it is correct in the accounting system. I just have to figure out where it's incorrect on my worksheets. But there would be an additional $17,515 in revenue. I just got to figure out if it's on the worksheet or an entry error. Okay, and I apologize. I was going through last night to find highlights, found that mistake. When I entered it in this morning, they didn't correspond. All right. Okay, do we want to move to expenditures? All right. So again, we start out with the expenditures. I've grouped them by the different the different areas that the state requires us to place our expenditures in. So there's public safety, culture and recreation, community development, general government, public works. Those are the different areas that they have us put those in. So in public safety, you see police administration, their operational costs are $1,511,554 with $192,624 in capital requests. Police union, 1.3 million and change. Police communications, $71,918. Police records, $125,877. Lee County Narcotics Task Force, $105,761 for a total in the police department of $3,315,228.
I have a question about staffing. So like currently we are on a staffing freeze, a hiring freeze.
No, with the policy is that at budget time, we discuss any position that might be open and decide whether to budget or not. But if it's budgeted, it's to be filled. or
Do we
can be
have any
filled.
open positions currently?
What's that?
Do we have any open positions currently?
You have 4 with two that are about to be filled.
We have 4 open positions that are budgeted for. 2 we've made conditional offers on.
So there's currently 4 open positions that are budgeted for in this current year. And 2 of those positions we've made conditional offers upon.
Okay. I think on average, we operate with how many police officers?
Over the last few years, it's varied, but I would say on average, we're probably 2 short over the last 4 years or so.
Is there a conversation to have that if we're budgeting for positions and we're not filling them, that we should operate more that where we're actually operating?
Well,
No,
go ahead.
Those positions have been open for various reasons at various times due to retirements. We're not operating at full capacity. It's a detriment to the department to lower staff.
However, we've been operating for several years at that level.
That's just an average. We have to fill slots with overtime. Guys get a heavier workload. There's a lot of varying factors, but we aren't optimal when we're short.
Does it cost us more in overtime than would on an average basis if we were fully staffed?
No, it doesn't eclipse the amount of having those positions filled. However, it does hurt morale amongst other issues. I mean, there's other factors that you have to look at. There's a reason that we're budgeted for 24 sworn officers.
Later on in the summaries, I do have a breakdown of employees by department. So if you want to have further discussion at that point, because that in that summary, we did calculate the cost per employee in each department. So in flood wall, we budget the 28.5 each year. The reason why is that if we happen to get a high water, we pay for electric at pump houses along the levee. In a good year, we don't use much of it. In 2018, 2019, when the river level was up at flood stage for almost a year, we used close to $30,000, $40,000 in electricity. So we budget that hoping that it's going to be a normal year. There's also some maintenance and repair on there The Corps of Engineers does come down and do a inspection. And when they do, we might have a case where we've got a gopher hole that we got to take care of. Hopefully there's no soft spots. The other thing is we have to keep weeds and grass mowed down so that they, we can have a clear inspection of it. So, this is the standard amount that we put in there and hope we don't have to use it. What you see in the re-estimates for the flood wall capital is still related to the 2018-2019 flood. And that should be the last expenditure for that. And we reimbursed on that 80/20. So we did have to put 20% of that cost. In fire administration, the operational costs are $590,499 with requested capital of $47,297. Fire protection, almost $1.5 million, a little short of it. Emergency Corps, $12,120 for total in the fire department of $2,147,563.
Going to say the same comment. I wonder if we shouldn't do an organizational study of the city to sort of see where we, as a community, as a city, we've shrank significantly. And I was curious if we shouldn't do an organizational study to sort of see how we are staffed and how that is compared to other communities and how they're operating as well.
Are we prepared if the number comes back that we would need to hire? That we have some departments that are actually working understaffed. So if we do something like that, are we prepared to hire when all of these employees are being told that they're actually understaffed?
So is that in reference to the fire department or the other departments?
All departments.
All departments, but I'm saying, are we prepared for that? If they say you're understaffed, then what?
Well, as far as when it comes to the Public Works Department, we're operating on a skeleton crew. Are we prepared to hire more staff? We would have to figure out how to work that into the budget, which would mean reduction somewhere else in order to maintain it where it's at.
I'm just saying that's what we open up when we do a study like that. I feel like I'm slightly more privy to the amount of calls, especially on the public safety side. So are we prepared if they say, actually, you are understaffed?
As far as the public safety side,
Or-
no,
or
we're
in
not.
any
We're not
department.
prepared.
In
We're not
any
prepared on the
department.
public safety side, and the reason being is that because of the strain on the general fund at current, we can't add staff in the general fund.
So that's all I'm saying is we would need to be prepared for that if we did a study.
Yes, if we
Across
did.
the departments. I can't imagine telling these employees, I know that you've already felt understaffed, but you severely are.
Right.
Best
Because
of luck.
what it is if it could, what I will tell you is that the number of firefighters that we have on shift at any one time, whether it's 6 or 5, is not what is required in order to properly fight a structure fire. Okay, it's 14 is the minimum.
15 on residential and more like 24 if you have industry or
Right.
bigger commercial.
So if it comes back and says we're understaffed on fire, but we're also understaffed in cemetery and parks, what do we do?
That's just my question. I feel
Right.
like we do these studies, just like the wage studies, and then we don't follow them.
We do have a wage study.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but we aren't currently following it. So that's my concern. Is
The
that
wage
we
study
did
states
something
that it can overlap on those grades though, too. There is a statement in there that says that at some cases that you will have overlap when it comes down to, because that's why the grade, it's not a black, white line. It has gaps in there.
I mean, but there's definitely a tier system.
There's a
on the way
tiered
it should work.
system, but those tiers overlap.
I just feel like we pay for these studies and then we aren't actively trying to implement them. So if
That
we
is-
do one, what's the goal? I guess what's the goal?
That I would say is if you do a staffing study, the goal is to figure out how to adequately staff where you're short or reduce where you're over. And that would be the goal. And so what it is if you do the study, you want to implement it. You don't want it just sitting on a shelf saying, hey, that's where we're at. So yes, the goal would be to adequately staff based upon that study, whether it's up or down.
But also look at how other models are for providing those services.
Yes, it could.
Can I say something here?
No.
Yeah, I can. Ha ha ha. Anyway, I guess my whole process in the whole thing and my whole thought process and of it all is I don't think we take at this point, and I'm not saying everybody, I'm just saying I don't think at this point we're taking public safety as important as it is. I know it's the highest budget, but we live in times where anything happens. I worked the emergency room 25 years ago, and people don't know what happens in this town when you go to bed at night, if you haven't done that. And I just think that, we shouldn't even be talking about cutting anyone's jobs. We should be talking about how we can make more money to keep those jobs. I don't care whether it's public safety or it's public works or it's community development. And when that's all said and done, after that, we need to decide how we can make our budget better so we can fully staff those departments instead of not seeing the importance of every one of our groups right now.
What I was going to say, though, historically, we have made decisions as a community to cut. We had 131 staff in the city in 1991. We currently have, what, 101?
And that's
cut around 30 positions. However, we've made decisions on where we've cut those positions over the history.
And I understand that. And that's what I'm saying. Right now, you can't tell me that, nobody can tell me that it's time to cut positions. Right now, it's time to figure out how to keep those positions and add to them instead of cutting. I don't know. I understand that our budget's bad. I understand that it's hard nowadays and we're having terrible times with monies and what's going on with the state and everything. But there has got to be a way not to cut a budget, any of our employees and make sure that down the line we start adding. There just has to be a way.
I think we're failing to recognize that in most communities as well, the piece of the pie that public safety takes is very similar to other communities. I mean, they're running 24 hours a day. It's not the 8-hour shifts at other departments. There's a reason that it's staffed the way that it is.
What I will tell you is that public safety in most cities is may not be the greatest portion, but is the most significant portion of any of their budgets.
Yep.
Okay. If they have an all volunteer, that portion is less significant than ours. If they have a smaller police force or they have more police force, it can fluctuate. In our case, 50% of our budget is public safety, right? Now there's other things in that public safety because, the next subject here is housing and animal control. And those are included in the public safety as well. So, that's a factor. But the most significant portion of our general fund is public safety. You as a council have to decide at what level you want that public safety based upon the statistics that they have for runs and for answering calls. You have to look at it as to what is comfortable for the citizens you represent. You have to make that decision. There are other models out there that might be able to be applied. And I think that Councilmember Oltmans is suggesting that as part of that staffing study, that we look at the alternative models. They may or they may not work. There is right now, I can tell you, a shortage of volunteers. I know of several cities that are all volunteer that have had strong volunteer fire departments. I mean, they were the people that kind of ran the town almost, because they had such great support. They had waiting lists for people to get on. They're now having to advertise for volunteers because they no longer have those waiting lists. So there is so there's that you have to factor in there. You have to factor into the safety requirements that have to be met for both departments. So that all has to go in there. So if you do a staffing study, it has to be more comprehensive than just what do we need.
That's why I just want us to be prepared as a whole, that it
Correct.
could go the opposite way.
Correct. And that it can go the opposite way and say that we need more staff in every department. And what are we going to do about it? Because otherwise we've just spent a couple, well, who knows, thousands of dollars on a study that goes and sits on a shelf.
I just think it's one of the concerns that I have is that we were a community of 15, 16,000 in 1960. And we're now a community of 9,900. And we've lost several industries since then. We have shrank significantly, and statistics aren't showing that we're going to be growing anytime soon, especially if we don't have housing and good infrastructure.
But
And I'm just concerned about the weight on the back of our residents that
Yes,
are,
their safety, I think, is concerning as well. We can talk about 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but 4 years ago, City Hall was on fire. A girl was getting murdered at the mall, and there were numerous other police calls the same night. That was with 9,900 people here.
I understand that.
And with our hospital closing down, now is not the time to make cuts in public safety. And one thing that kind of gets lost is that due to our unique location, we get more traffic or similar traffic across the bridge that Burlington does. About 10,000 cars a day, according to the comprehensive plan that Keokuk had done several years ago. Fort Madison gets a fourth of that. So we do serve those individuals as well through accidents or other needs that they may have, and that has to be taken into consideration.
I would say you could look at your other communities too, Fort Madison, Ottumwa, Burlington. They've all tried different alternatives. Those programs have failed, and they would actually put the staff back on that they tried to cut. So, I mean, you could always reach out to them and talk to them as well. Gives you a demographic of what's going on in Southeast Iowa versus some of the other communities Councilperson Altman continues to compare us to.
I just want to add one thing. I know you sent us all a thing on Cedar Falls, and I did a little more research into that this past week. And if you look at a couple of current articles, which I could email to all of you if you want to, because I emailed them to myself. One of them, the only people at this point that I'm finding that are in agreement with the Cedar Falls idea of the public safety officers is the council members that put it in charge. Other than that, none of the citizens like it. There's an article about a guy who lost his house, and he's standing there and he says, three actual firefighters showed up and 2 police officers that were public safety officers. And he said, they're slow. They're standing around thinking, this ain't my job. He said, so I watched my house burn because the right people weren't there. And they tried that. And like I said, when you look at, that's what you need to understand. Firefighters show up, they're doing a firefighting job. On the other side, police officers show up. Now you've got a firefighter showed up at the situation that happened to the mall a couple of years ago. He's like, I'm not ready for this. This ain't what I signed up for. We hire them for a particular reason. And they know that when they come on board, I'm a police officer. My job entitles this. This is my job requirement. And they go in all in. They know that from the get-go. Fire department's the same way. They do that. And it's not any different even, I mean, you hire somebody to go work at Roquette or Walmart. You don't down the road say, oh, by the way, we're going to need you to do this as well. To me, we're just opening up a serious can of worms if we try to do any of that just so we can make ourselves feel better about not spending as much money. Public safety ought to always, in any department, because the one thing you never want to have happen is you call 911 and they say, please hold, we don't have anybody to send to your house right now. And if you look at some of the volunteer organizations in this county, and I can speak from experience because I'm chief for one of them, we struggle to get volunteers. And the volunteers we do get, half of them don't show up when something happens. I have heard radio calls from different fire departments in this county, 2 and 3 times, structure on fire, and the radio call go out 2 or 3 times before somebody finally responds, hey, we got 3 people, we're en route. Meanwhile, this structure is burning to the ground and nobody knows it. Nobody's there. And that's what we need to understand. The last fire we just had is an extreme testament to how good our fire department is. You look at how close the other structures were, they don't have any damage. Police department's the same way. You know, I have never talked and called any time and been, well, it's going to be a couple days before somebody can get there. You know, it's right there. To me, that needs to always be our priority. You tell some citizen in town, hey, we're going to, you know, you better put a garden hose out and you better get yourself a guard dog because we're cutting a bunch of things down. So your safety's not going to be as much.
I don't think that public safety is not critical. It's absolutely critical. I'm just saying is that if we continue to tax the citizens that we have remaining in our community to provide service levels at the level that we were when we were 15,000 30 years ago, or 15,000 in 1960, people are leaving our community. And I've had many conversations with people that are leaving our community because they don't like the taxes. I've had many conversations with developers that say they won't do development here because the taxes are too high for them to be able to make that pro forma work out for a housing development. So I'm just saying is that like we can have difficult conversations about how do we try to stop the bleed, or we can continue to put more burden on the people that remain.
I guess I would go back to what Zeth said a few minutes ago. If you look at our community, we still are serving 15 to 17,000 people, even though the tax base isn't there. That's how many people come into our community to use our services.
I think the other thing that's important, and Chief Baum said it is right now, cutting public safety is not the time. We don't have a hospital. I know that the police department, the fire department are at some point going to have to be transferring, and then they're going to have to pull somebody else in to help on those shifts. I mean, at this point right now, I just think that safety, the public safety departments are functioning at the level that they're at right now. Maybe not, as Rosalind said, maybe they don't have enough either and we don't know it. But without a hospital, we need to continue the way we are. I understand that we have less people, but I also don't see where if we get rid of half of our public safety department, that's going to lower our taxes in any way, shape, or form, because our tax is going to go down because we get rid of them.
That's not the suggestion.
I know, I understand that, but we're talking that it takes a lot of our tax base, but our taxes aren't going to go down if we take that away. Taxes very seldom ever go down, and I think we all know that.
I don't think we're on an island either. Taxes may be slightly higher here, but your cost of living is arguably cheaper. You can go to Des Moines and pay $500,000 for a house that is probably not worth half. Your taxes will be lower, but your house is significantly more. The cost of living is more. Your grocery trip is more. I mean,
But you can take also that revenue out of your house. So when you have lower assessed values and you have lower appraised values of homes, that means that you don't have that as a household, that capital to be able to use as well. There is an investment. So if your house is worth is appraised at $500,000, the bank looks at you a lot differently than if your house is appraised at $200,000.
Some of those houses aren't appraised at 500. That's what they're selling for, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You know,
but
their cost of living is higher. I think it's a trade we're constantly getting into. Even if public safety was cut, you're not going to lower taxes enough to where we're still able to fix the infrastructure. We're still able to update these homes where fires happen because they aren't up to code, and to get better streets, et cetera, et cetera. The taxes aren't going to magically go down.
So then what I was going to say too, though, is the suggestion is that, so we're doing this vacant property registry, we're doing all these things. These are things that are fire prevention, yes? So but what I'm saying though is that moving forward, we're going to have people that are going to be doing those inspections. And the expectation should then be is that we can work with the staffing that we do have to make sure those things happen. Because I don't think Pam and Casey have enough capacity to be able to go out and do those inspections either.
Our fire department has
I
already
just want
got
to
their,
make sure that that's clear.
has already got their staff trained and
No, they
ready to
got
go when
trained on
Pam
fire
and Gabe are
fire
done.
inspections, not on the vacant we haven't created a vacant property inspection program yet.
That's what they're working on.
Okay.
And the
Just
fire
wanna make sure
department
that's
has,
clear.
the fire department has gotten their, how many, Gabe, 5, 6 ready to go?
9.
9?
9.
So that's what they're working on, and I know Gabe and Pam are working really hard on it.
I just want to make sure that's clear. That's what I'm saying.
And I'm just going to throw this out, and then I think we need to move on, but I'm going to throw this out. I was in code enforcement for 15 years, and in that time, whenever I had a call, ever I had to inspect a department, ever went to a building, ever did anything, I had a police officer or a fireman with me. They went, they took their time out of their day, and I was never felt unsafe and was never, ever, ever, ever worried about going, and they would handle escalated situations in the utmost, with the utmost respect, and most of the time it was de-escalated and we went on. So they do, those two departments do more than we all realize. They just do.
In 1960, we didn't have a school resource officer. We didn't have a drug officer. And if we go to volunteer, they still got to have turnout gear. We probably still have to have some insurance for them. I don't know that it is a dollar for dollar savings to cut bodies and cut training, or not cut training, but do away with the professionals.
I don't think, that's not what I'm suggesting. I want to make sure everyone's clear about that. Most communities our size have a combination force. So they have between 3 and 8 professional firefighters, and then they have between 20 and 30 volunteers that are paid on call.
We had a volunteer police department, and I think, is it still available?
The reserves?
Reserves?
The reserves is on the books, but we haven't had reserves for,
We haven't had anybody come forward. Of course, I guess we haven't advertised either.
yeah.
But one of the reserves, they chased a couple of subjects, and one of the reserves fell in the hole and had to have a knee operation. We paid workers' comp, so on and so forth for him. So it's not a free ride.
So I think we need to move on.
So again, the included in the public safety is the housing, and that is what Casey does. Of that $313,047, $150 of it is for removal of dilapidated housing. So the total public safety is $5,948,168. Under Public Works, general street maintenance, that is for any time there's damage that occurs to a street that is paid back through insurance. So for example, when they tried to bring the windmill propellers through town and took out a couple of signs, their insurance company paid it back. We cannot put that into the road use tax fund in order to reimburse it, so that's what that account is for. The street lighting total represents represents the portion that comes out of the general fund. There is 95,000 still coming out of the road use tax fund. Traffic light maintenance, that is to take care of our streetlights. We reduced that slightly because we are going to now have all new controller units. We're still waiting for them to get down here and install those, especially at Second Street because it's still on all flash. That's the first one that they're going to put in once they get here. So then we can move on with that. So that being said, there is no capital in traffic light maintenance because the last of the controllers will be placed in this year. At the airport, their operational is $378,701, and that includes the purchase of the bulk fuel. We do make a profit on that at the end of the year, and it has been, I think last year or this year, we're projecting over $20,000 in profit. Raymond does a really great job out there. He promotes the airport. He keeps track of what other people are charging for their fuel. We tend to stay very competitive, and we do get a lot of pilots that are coming across, and they pick us to land at rather than Mount Pleasant or Fort Madison for that reason. The capital you see there of $64,500, that is for terminal improvements. That is one half of the money, provided that we get the money from the FAA. There is a 10% match, and that 10% match, he reduced some of his line items in order to meet that match. Some of them are contingencies for like maintenance on hangars, maintenance on the terminal facility. So he was using some of that in order to make up the match. The bulk fuel, that is our fuel station. We're projecting higher prices when it comes to fuel for the upcoming year. They say that when summer hits, we're looking at possibly $4 gas again. So we've tried to budget for that. And then Public Works, that's the operational cost for the Public Works Administration. That includes anything done down here at City Hall. And the total Public Works subtotal for general fund is $902,205. When we get into culture and recreation, we're allocating $605,818 to the library. That does include some contributions from the county in there. The River Museum, that's the operational cost of $24,596. Union Depot, we provide $8,000 in support each year. When you look at the reestimate there, that is part of the state historical grant. They're paying, that they're using, I believe it's the chimney. I think it's the chimney and some outside brickwork. That project was paid for either by grants or a local donation. So the general fund did not support that grant, that project through monetary funds at all. The Grand Theater, operational cost $33,700. We always budget $25,000 in theater capital paid from their nonprofit support fund. In parks, you'll see their operational costs of $386,960. The capital in parks is 100% the, well, I shouldn't say 100%, but is you see the trail is in there, and then one half of the resurfacing of the playground at Rand Park. Both of those are paid, well, the trail is paid 100% through grants and donations. The resurfacing is paid from reserves out of the Park Improvement Fund. The pool, we budget for what we believe is going to be our maintenance costs plus the full contract with the YMCA. I'll tell you that each year for the last 2 years, We have not had to pay out the full contract because it's based upon the revenues they get in versus the expenditures they have. We do pay them a management fee that is set, and then at the end of the year, we make up their deficit up to a certain amount. They never hit the maximum deficit, so we always save a little bit of money there. Cemetery operational cost of $271,894. The whole hotel motel right now, we are budgeting at $235,640. And in front of you, Celeste has this sheet. Okay. So in this sheet, the highlighted, yellow highlighted is everything that we've currently budgeted for. Anything that's not highlighted are the additional requests that came in after the initial requests were budgeted for. So what we have is total requests of $251,640. We have budgeted $235,640. The receipts coming in are budgeted at $250,000, I believe. Let me quickly check.
Was it 275?
Yeah, 275. So I'm sorry, it was at 275. And any non-allocated hotel motel tax goes back to support all the other expenditures within the general fund. That is allowable under state code. State code says that 50% of the hotel motel tax has to be spent on tourism activities. We more than meet that with all of the different organizations that we provide funds for. Sorry, some of these, some of the requests in here that have come in may not be considered tourism, but again, we have discretionary above that 50% amount. So again, we're at budgeted $235,640. We are have requests of $251,640, and we have $275 to spend.
Are we talking about these now?
Yeah, this is a good point to talk to it.
So I can't vote, but I am a part of the Oakland Cemetery Initiative, so I will abstain from that. However, it would be a good tourist attraction. It's something that we've worked closely with the schools on as a potential, I don't want to say field trip to the cemetery, but field trip there to learn about people who have contributed to Keokuk's history. We did have to pay tourism for a table at Eagle Days, and I didn't realize that. So we paid to advertise a Keokuk event to Keokuk Tourism. I'd like to see the group get the money, as it would take care of at least 2 to 3 of the 6 signs. We've already raised almost $2,000 ourselves. I just don't know that I fully support the total of 150 going there. If we're not going to see new events. Dustin Cackley came Thursday and he said that tourism was not going to help him with Puckashetuck, but that they would publicize it. So I'm just struggling with that.
Well, and in conversations with tourism over the last few times we've been in here, they've made it very clear that they believe their job is not to do events, that their job is to publicize everyone else's events. Looking at the math of all of this, so everything on the page adds up to the 251, 640. We've allocated, or we're anticipating 275 coming in. So that leaves us roughly 24,000 if everything was fully granted as requested, or the odds and ends that come up throughout the year. That being said, the Keokuk Neighborhood Initiative, the 10,000 request there, is that something that could be shifted to TIF as opposed to a cultural and an entertainment style fund?
It could be as an additional contribution to KEDC as a possibility. As you know, the TIF funds are shrinking. So if we allocate that Right now, I'm projecting that we'll have an ending fund balance in there of just $11,000. And TIF can be in and out, so you don't have to necessarily maintain a reserve. But do know that that supports the development center, supports KEDC, and again, we put portions of that to debt service to help pay for certain bonds. So that in the future, if there's any other reductions and we still want to maintain the obligations to KEDC, Neighborhood Initiative, and the SID Center, that there would be reductions on how much we would take and pay towards debt service.
And I believe what Kay and I has been doing is good work in that we should support it. I'm just questioning, since it's an economic development line item here on hotel motel tax. So what you said was that essentially, yeah, there's enough in TIF, but we're really tight on the belt line if we pay it out of TIF.
Yeah, you can do it. It's just, in the future, that if you want to maintain the obligations, there's going to be less money going elsewhere.
Shelley, I know you're involved with K&I. Do you know, is this a one-time ask, or was this intended as an annual?
So, I mean, I think that housing is one of the priorities that the council identified.
Yeah.
And I think that then what our intentions is to be able to grow Keokuk Neighborhood Initiative as a housing corporation to address, to hopefully get housing developed and things like that. With all the funds that we have coming in through the city, with these grants, for instance, that are supporting housing, I think that we look at it as something that we would want to grow versus actually just one-time ask. We are, as a community, we don't really invest in housing, and and we say it's our biggest issue. However, we haven't really been allocating funds that way other than through Pam and Casey's position. So I think, to me, I would say, for instance, like Newton, they have done several different programs and they have grown their assessed value for their valuations in their community by $125 million in 5 years. That's growing their revenue. So I see it as something that's an investment, and I would like to have it grow. Do you want to put your mic on? Sorry.
Has the initiative spoke with the Housing Trust Fund? They do have fund for developing single-family houses up to 25,000 for
So,
each.
You mean for the Housing Trust Fund for what?
It for construction of housing. I mean, what is the 10,000 for?
Oh,
as
the
far as-
10,000 for is to be able to find, well, right now the conversations is that we want to get together with Main Street, Keokuk Economic Development Corporation, the Chamber, the School District, and Keokuk Neighborhood Initiative to look at how do we want to staff these organizations all together so that we can hire the right people to get the priorities done for our communities.
Okay, so more,
So
it
this
would,
10,000 isn't for like a one-time tearing buildings down or anything like that. We're hoping that that can go towards supporting a staff position.
okay.
Is the Rolling on the River event changed? I thought there was like a latest update about moving it or something. Is that
Yes.
going to affect this fund request?
So what Rolling on the River is currently looking at is they are going to do one night at the Grand Theater instead of a multi-night at the riverfront. There was some confusion on if it was the last year or not, and they did send out a clarifying statement that it is not their intention that this is the final year, but they are moving forward with the change in venue and structure.
Okay.
It said like curtain call on.
Okay. So they can still use the 3,500 then?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they still also rely on sponsors, which they have lost, so.
Okay. So in my opinion, also for tourism, I'd like to propose that we give them the increase for the new phone system, but I do not support the rest of the increase. I think that most of the things that Kirk said at the workshop, in my opinion, are concerning, and I don't think that the tourism department is living up to their full potential, and they're missing out on so many opportunities, and I can't justify us spending the money on that. I would go as even farther to say that I don't like how Eagle Days is being mishandled. And if we're spending $10,000 on that for that event not to be in Keokuk anymore, why don't we change it to 5,000?
All right, so I do have tourism's proposed budget. And the increases were in brochures and distribution of general tourism was from 20,000 to 33,450. The other increases were in
Advertising.
yeah, I'm looking through here just real quick. I didn't see, unless that the telephone system must be included in the telephone and internet line item.
Yeah, it's $2,000 is what I have written down,
Right,
which I think's fine.
okay. So,
And the only, I mean, I just wanted to comment on the brochures. I love that John said it's great that we have a brochure, a physical thing for somebody to take with them from a trip. But I think it was Shelley that mentioned it's very text heavy. It has an outdated map in it. It's not appealing. And I can't believe that we would spend $33,450 to print those outdated textbooks. And that's my opinion.
And not only that, but there was an increase of 13,000 this year for the print.
For just that.
And
What I was going to say is I'm curious if we can't request that they redo that and that some of these funds, because it's going to cost a lot of money, because you're
Kirk-
going to have to hire somebody
Kirk
to
did
do the
say,
design.
yeah, we can redo it. We can add more pages for you. Do you
But-
want a bigger brochure? Remember, he said that. I want a smaller, nicer brochure.
No, I mean, what I'm going to say though is that it's a redesign aspect. And I mean, usually you hire a consultant for something like that. And I was curious if that's something that we don't request, that that's redesigned and redone. And that some of those advertising
And
dollars
maybe
then
we
go to
can
that.
tell them that for next year, because I don't think there's enough time to do that now. That's a next year, like here's a suggestion from us. Maybe you can look at it next year.
I think my struggle was that everyone was very nice, but the struggle is that they're promoting things. And then when I mentioned things that were missed in the brochure, it was, well, we can't get everything. So if we're not making new events, but we're promoting the ones we have, then we have to capture everything. We have to be able to promote every event that is going on. If that's what it is, if it's for advertising solely. And I haven't had a chance to reach out to other communities because I feel like you see in other places, tourism is helping promote and be a part of the boards on making new things.
well, one of the criticisms that I've heard of the visitor's guide that they have is that it contains almost too much information,
Mm-hmm.
and that it could be slimmed down. Now, what I've got here is that if you just take out the increase for that, that's an additional $13,000. Everything else remains the same. Was the digital marketing part of that, I believe, as well?
Digital marketing, well, they want $7,000 for that. So that's separate.
Okay. So if we wanted to take out just the brochure, we're now down to $6,000 and leave the digital marketing.
I only support the new phone system.
You
And
only
take out
support-
advertising
okay.
as well.
So you would take out all of the additional
Mhm.
money for marketing?
I want to support the digital marketing. I think that's critical, especially with being online. And that's the path I think that we need to move towards versus even having printed brochures. That it's nice to have a printed brochure, but do we need to have 10,000 printed brochures or 20,000 printed brochures? To me, I'd rather have them having somebody that's doing their digital marketing for them.
I don't disagree with digital marketing by any means, but I think that the proposal that they have, it doesn't seem like it's going to make an impact.
it's because the budget is so small for that.
Yeah. And if you read the email from Dr. James, he actually had that marketing professional look at it that he uses, and they didn't understand how that little bit of money was going to yield the results that tourism says it's going to. It's not going to give them those results.
Yeah, the main difference between those two, what the email came in, essentially that gentleman is spending monthly
Yes.
what tourism said they do annually.
Yeah.
Now, what they were getting for what they paid was more or less the same. The business was getting 1.7 cents per impression. Tourism was proposing 1.3 cents per impression. But you're looking at monthly versus annually, and then, like you said, how effective would that be?
Yep.
Now, I would say the digital marketing is the future, and it's what they need to move towards. So they got to start somewhere, sometime. And I know that people have mentioned, well, it's with my company.
Yeah.
It's buying local. If they can find a comparable price elsewhere, that's fine. They have to go to digital, in my opinion, one way or the other. So they got to start at some point in time.
But
And so,
what are
but
we
I also
marketing?
think the brochures, the increasing 13,000 on print, that's not the future.
No.
My concern is, what are we marketing digitally? And I say that not being condescending, but if we're just making the brochure a PDF, or if it's still an outdated website,
The
is
digital,
it worth marketing?
Well, from
Digitally.
what I thought I understood looking at the marketing proposal is that they're marketing that to the Nauvoo visitors for the events over
in
there.
Utah?
Yes.
and they said it was a portion, I don't know
Yeah.
what the scale on that
Yeah,
is.
there,
I
there
just
was,
meant-
they do market towards that, because of the concept of heads and beds.
Oh,
right?
I agree with,
Right.
the concept of digital marketing, but
Right.
am I gonna be scrolling on Facebook and I see a picture of the front of the brochure and I click on it and it takes me to the website that's a PDF that I flip through all
Sure.
20 pages, and there's not a link to the restaurants. I don't know what they serve.
Sure.
So what
Uh,
digital marketing can do, and what was in that proposal, there was no social media at all as that proposal. So that would have just be ads on websites. You know, you're reading the news and you see those ads that are on the top and the side, or you pull up an ad from ESPN on your phone and the ads that are in between the sports scores. That's what digital,
And then you're
waiting
for that.
yeah,
To
it's
say,
those
"Get out
types
of
of
my
things.
way."
And then wherever that takes you after you click on it, that's on tourism. That's what they have to
That's-
have developed.
That I feel like needs to be great.
And it's not gonna like take them to the Nauvoo website, right?
No.
To support that?
No, it takes them to the tourism website. And now the tourism website may have links to other areas, whether it be Fort Madison, Nauvoo, Carthage. Because, while they want to concentrate on Keokuk for tourism, they also want to be able to have people come for more than just a, hey, I'm running through type visit. They want them to be able to come and have a complete visit. So maybe they stay 2-3 days and they go through Keokuk, and then they might travel over to Nauvoo or Carthage, and then they'll come back to Keokuk and stay here or something like that. So that is one aspect of it. I personally believe that there are some things that could be done with that website and the brochure.
I looked at the
that-
virtual brochure and the physical brochure, and I was a little confused because maybe they haven't made the updates yet, but they're the same right
Right.
now.
And I think there's a way to do it, but that's my personal opinion.
Well, and
I do think that they have some new members and some younger members that are into the part of the digital and are ready to jump forward and try to make tourism a better place, a better group. And I would hate to see them take away the digital. I do believe that there are 4 people on there that are now ready to step forward and push and do what needs to be done. And I don't think it's not that the other people don't. I just think that these 4 people now have the ideas and have the knowledge and can show the people how much better it would be. As far as the digital part goes, if we don't, they got to do something to move forward. And they have to get into that system, and they have to see what's going on. And I do believe we have 4 new people on there now that are ready to push forward. I know Leah is one of them. Leah Jones is one of them, and I know that she has the full support of a lot of the other members too, as they're seeing what can be done. So I don't know if that was really put to us that day as much as it should be done, and as much as it could have been. But I also agree with the brochure, and I believe that, it looked like it was cut and pasted and just done again, and we probably need to decide. I don't know, I hate to take the digital away from them because they can't move forward without it.
Well, for clarity, I'm not against digital marketing.
I'm not
I'm just
either.
not sure what's being marketed when there's events that are missing currently. And we're currently losing events. We're talking that there might not be the Big Dam Street Festival. So are we paying for digital marketing? I know for area tourism, but essentially for Geode Fest and Eagle Days.
So,
With
Is that
Eagles,
is that what it's for?
so, maybe a suggestion here is that, again, because what it is, I looked in and, from the budget here. So they've got $12,000 increase for, the visitor's guide. They've got 7,500 increase for advertising, and I believe that includes the digital advertising.
Mhm.
And then they've got $2,000 for the phone system. Maybe a suggestion is that you look at making adjustments on the amount they want for the brochure, with the caveat of start the digital marketing, but we're going to want further updates to maximize the benefit of that, and that they're going to need to have performances on that in order to get allocations next year.
And I can, with the digital, just so that everybody understands, it is not something that you set at the beginning of the year and then you don't change. It's something that you can monitor on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and you can alter your, whatever it is that you're promoting on the fly. So it can go from event to event, or if there's a new event that, if Puckashetuck Days happens, they can alter the digital to that without any additional expenses as part of whatever company's package they would go with.
We could also make suggestions on the brochure, which I think should be made.
yeah, we did
because-
try that already.
What's that?
We already did that at the workshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think that could be reworked.
I will say too, with as much as we've talked to tourism, and all of us have questions about what and the efficient manner and the changing of the times, they use the hotel motel tax as their metric, as if they're doing a good job or not. And we have it coming in higher than it's been pre-COVID at this
Right.
point. So
Well-
in their minds, they're doing everything correct.
Okay, but you also got to remember a lot of that, this previous year anyway, was because of the deal with J.I. Case and all of that other. We had all of these out of country scabs staying at the hotel, for lack of a better word. And they were using up 3 of the hotels in town, driving these people around in big vans. And so that had nothing to do with tourism. They weren't here to go view something. They were here because they were working a job that people had that job were on strike for.
No
And that's
different
the
than when the
problem.
fertilizer plant was built as well. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I mean. That's part of the problem. I mean, if you just go to their website and you pull up calendar of events, every 4th or 5th is out of town. Rutledge, Hamilton, Nauvoo, Donaldson, Farmington. And none of the events that just Dustin talked about the other day, none of them are on there. Rolling on the River still shows 2 days. So they're not, and Rutledge and a lot of the other ones are the ones that have, you can click on that to get a link and go somewhere else. Now, the other ones, you can click on a link and they can get any more information about it. So my concern, I'd kind of mirror what a couple others have already said, is versus doing some paper pamphlet that you can't change once it's printed. Let's concentrate and get on your website and keep it current. If you want to spend that kind of money for that, then let's keep it current, because if I'm looking for something and I'm coming to town and I look through that and it says what to do or calendar of events, and we've got something going on, but it's not in their calendar of event, they don't even know it's here. And that's the problem, is they're not keeping current with what we've already got going on.
Well, and I think that there's a lot of things happening with Main Street and events that have popped up over the last couple of years that tourism just isn't wanting to get involved with or talk about or promote.
I do. Extremely.
And to follow up on one comment that Councilmember Greenwald made is that is our tourism bureau, their metric is heads and beds, right? A hotel motel tax. But tourism encompasses more than just people staying here.
Does.
Because if you're having these events, you're hopefully drawing people in from Carthage, Fort Madison, Hamilton, Quincy, Burlington, right? That are going to come down, they're going to come to the events and they're going to go back home. You also have to take into account, especially with the new shops that have opened on Main Street, the diversity of the shopping there now, is that you have to count the people that come into the community just for a day to shop. The state of Iowa classifies tourism not by the number of people that are sleeping in hotels and motels, but if you go out into a parking lot and count the out of state, not just out of state, out of county plates, right? So if someone from Des Moines County comes down to rolling on the river, you count that plate towards tourism. So my opinion is that the metric of heads and beds is only one component of how to measure the success of tourism.
I agree.
I agree too.
Because we have so many day events
And that's
Correct.
where
that
their
don't require a
opportunity-
hotel. Yes.
That's where their
Right.
opportunity to grow and strengthen their organization can
Right.
come from, is by
And-
looking at that other.
But I think growing and strengthen their growth and strength is going to have to come from digital now. It can't just become,
But what are they marketing?
and I think maybe somebody, I mean,
That's all I'm not understanding what are we putting on the app?
Well, from what I understood, didn't Kirk mention that there's only 2 events that tourism really participates in town? It's Eagle Days and Geode Fest. So at the workshop, he mentioned, well, we might not even have Eagle Days next year, and we didn't have it almost this year. Okay, so now you're down to 1 event for Keokuk. Wouldn't that make you think, if I'm going to be potentially losing an event, what can I do to be proactive and come up with something new, or talk to the other departments and say, what's something that we can replace instead of Eagle Days, and start working towards getting more things? I guess I didn't get that impression.
I just want to know what we're marketing. I agree with the digital marketing, but if we're going to have
Yeah.
an ad and it says visit Keokuk and it says tourism, when they click on it, where does it take you? What does it say? Because
So-
if it's garbage and hard to
Yeah.
read or to navigate, people don't care.
If it's
So-
our 32-page brochure, then I don't think that's a good idea.
So my question is whether we can ask, I mean, and I think this is what my suggestion is that we allocate the 7,000 this year for digital marketing and we ask for a quarterly report on what they're doing and what they're advertising and what they're promoting. And from that aspect, then we know what's going on. We're giving them a taste of this is what it could, if you do this well, we would be investing in that. But we have to give them a chance before we,
Right.
say they aren't doing it. That's
Right.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with the council member is that there probably needs to be steps, and the next step needs to be redoing that webpage. Because if they're doing the digital marketing and it's going to the webpage and the webpage is not
Hard to
current,
navigate.
is stale, people are going to come to it once, and if they don't like the looks of it, they're going to leave. If they still want to find out information and it's not there or something's not there. So I think I agree with the council member. First step may be getting the digital marketing going, and then provide that they come in and give performance on what they're doing. And then at the second point is we emphasize you need to do something to help that digital marketing because the web page is not sufficient.
We have a city liaison with the tourism, right?
What's that?
Not currently.
There's not a city liaison person for the tourism department? There is? So is that something that,
Judy McDonald is the city appointed.
Well, the city appointed,
No.
but there was a council member that was supposed to be the
Council
liaison.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. There's no,
That I don't know.
I can't
Okay.
remember.
it may have been Linda,
I think it
It might
was
have been
Linda
Linda.
Marston,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
but there's not a current one.
I think it was Linda Marston.
Right.
Okay.
So it may be beneficial to have a council member be the liaison and go to their monthly meetings.
It is during the day, so.
Yes, it is.
They have
were
their
very nice,
meeting
they
at
reached out, but
lunchtime.
It is a noon meeting, so
Right.
if you.
And that was one of the reasons why Linda could do it was
Yeah.
at the time she wasn't teaching, so.
Question about their budget that they proposed. I don't have it in front of me. Do they have their website listed as a line item? As if we want them to redo their website?
They do.
They
They
do.
spend $2,000.
Yeah, that's just hosting.
Um,
That's just
actually,
hosting, that's not.
that was in 2021. The price for it in 2022 was 1,000, and then their price for 2023 they only put $500.
That's on them, yeah.
They have to be aware that if they want. Yeah.
Well, a new website could be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. So,
Well, and I think we should remember that, I don't know what the phone system is. I don't know if it's just they need a new phone or what, but people are not calling about tourism. So
Well,
we don't need like multi-phone line. You're not putting anybody on hold
for
down there.
telephone and internet for this year, they put down $4,000 is their budget for phone and internet.
And I think that includes the
The new
that includes the
$2,000.
$2,000. And what I will tell you is that it's very hard to find an analog system anymore. You have to go to the voice over internet protocol. So those phones are, even if you're just putting in one or two phones and then the whole other system, it is expensive.
I'm just hoping that we're not investing in some sort of,
Like
we
with
don't need
eight
4
different
lines.
lines or something
I
like
can
that. Yeah.
promise that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that also that, getting a little bit away from the tourism part of it, and if we would choose not to do the 2,000 for the phone system, I also think that anybody that's asking for more than $5,000, 5,000 or more, that's what they're asking for. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to have that. I mean, I guess I could speak a little for historic preservation, although we need we need 5,000, we need more. We'd be happy with 4. So is there a way to cut some of these down, like anybody that's asking for more than 5 or 10,000, that we say we're only going to give you, if you're asking for 10, we only give you 9, or if you're asking for 5, we only give you 4. I mean, these are all requests that are asking for money to run something, but obviously most of it's not going to run their whole program. So I'm wondering if that isn't a way we can cut too. I mean, Main Street Incorporated is doing a fantastic job, but are they going to turn $39,000 down and if we don't give them 40? That's my,
I would rather give Main Street their whole amount than tourism because they're doing new things and we're seeing great results.
and I understand that, but it looks to me like we need to cut 15,000 too. So, I mean, I'm just saying, is Main Street going to say to us, oh, well, don't want to give me 40,000, you're only giving me 39, is that going to be?
No, probably not.
You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying take everything away from tourism. I'm saying, is there other places?
Let's
Okay.
start there.
and in regard to what you just said, these requests don't add up to over what we have. So we don't
Yeah,
have
I was
to
gonna say that.
technically cut any of them. We could give them everything they wanted and still have 24,000 left over.
Yeah.
And I'm not disagreeing. I just wanted that to be known. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right here.
what I will tell you is that the Fine Arts Council, the Keokuk Art Center, the Pavilion Commission, their requests have not changed over the 5 years that I've been here. So those are their standard requests. They build it into the budget. That's the amount they're going to get every year, and that's it. Yeah, so we can certainly go down it. So the Fine Arts Council, again, their annual request is $12,500.
But that's not.
They don't have an increase. So
Yeah,
they're
I'm fine with them.
okay.
Yep.
We're good.
They do good work for what they do.
Let's skip tourism and come back to it. Is that all right? All right. Keokuk Art Center, excuse me, $7,140.
I think they went up 140. Wasn't it?
They might have added the 140 at some
think they
time, but
added the
it was
140, but
always
I'm
around
okay with it.
$7,000, so. Okay. Main Street, 40,000, that is an increase.
No, that's at the bottom.
What was Main Street's increase?
I think it was 15,000. 22,500. So it's
However-
27.5 or 26.5.
I'm honestly okay with the 40 because I think we need to support Main Street and the efforts that they're trying to do on making it look better. They did get buildings just handed to them.
Okay.
I was going to say too, the facade grant, that was previously a funded thing that they had
Correct.
always had, and they had about $5,000 to $7,500 that was taken out fairly recently.
2-3 years ago, that went away.
It was when COVID hit.
COVID, yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that's not in here is there is no slush fund, right? Because we had budgeted $10,000 for people who come in outside of the budget period. So we're not doing that. That is not included. Do you have it in there? Well, I am incorrect. So there is. I thought we'd taken that out, but there is a miscellaneous of $10,000
For one-time request?
for one-time requests. So actually, our current budget is includes that $10,000. So if you take the request, yeah, so the requests are still 251. We still have 275, and we're budgeting 235, and the 235 includes the 10,000 slush fund.
Main Street, Keokuk, I'd like to just.
Okay. Rand Park Pavilion, again, their annual request is $7,500. Can't afford the mower. All right. Rolling on the River, that is, they've requested it in the past, and we did increase it from their 2,500 to 3,500. Okay. The Oakland Cemetery Initiative is $1,000.
Yep.
Is
Okay.
that a one-time request for signs? Yes, okay. Okay, thank you.
So the Keokuk Neighborhood Initiative is $10,000. We've had a suggestion that maybe we contribute additional money to KEDC and pay for it out of TIF, knowing the ramifications of that. Another suggestion is that we don't have the slush fund and we can make it up that way. Or when we get to K-Play, the K-Play could be the slush fund for this year. So that is a one-time, the K-Play is one-time expense.
I'm a little unsure about the K-Play just because of the costs that we're gonna have to do with the restrooms and everything and the maintenance and then this too.
Yeah, so what it is the $10,000 is a contribution towards the restrooms. We will be contributing in other ways in order to get
Yeah.
all of the utilities and everything else there. And then we will have the additional costs of maintenance. Exactly, because there will need to be probably checks on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is do we want to contribute directly or do in kind with some of the other stuff that we're doing?
I would say as long as it's not, this $10,000 isn't being used to leverage other funds, that's one of the questions that I would have, is if it's something that they're making a statement as to if we get this $10,000, we're matching for other funds. That's the only question that I would have.
If my memory is correct, I don't believe that's the case. I believe the 10,000 was what they needed to get over one of their milestones so that they could move on to the next phase.
Right.
Okay.
And so I would imagine that if we adjusted that, they would still be able to find other revenue sources to get there.
So one of the things that I think that we also we have $275,000 in hotel motel tax. And right now we don't have all that money allocated towards community and economic development. It would go into the general budget. My question to the council is, do we want to have those funds go into the general budget that are remaining, or do we want to invest in these kind of projects is a question.
Well, what it is if you allocate more money, because the general fund is going to expend more than it brings in. So if you allocate more money, that's going to add to that deficit. Okay. So do we want to keep our, you know, the target being the 251? Or, I'm sorry, the 235, 640, which is currently allocated? And again, that 235, 640 includes the $10,000 discretionary fund.
Well, do we want to finish going down the list? And
Okay,
see where
all right.
what that number looks
So,
like?
so again, we're at neighborhood initiative and the K-play. I haven't heard a definitive answer on what you wanted to do. The explanation was that this would be the city's contribution towards other organizations also putting in funds to hire a marketing, not a marketing, a housing coordinator or a
So
full-time
to
position.
be honest, one of the big things as a community that we need to have a conversation about is that we have several nonprofits doing community and economic development in our community right now. We currently have, for instance, the Tourism Bureau that has 1.5 employees. We have Main Street, which has 1.5 employees right now. And Chambers contributing, I think, 70% to the new office manager. But as all these nonprofits, is that we could have all these little part-time people that are making no money, to be honest. They're not being paid at a level that is reasonable personally. As to how do we say if housing's an issue, then how do we get some staff people and some funds? So like we were looking at that $10,000 as a potential internship for the summer, like a graduate student that we had, or looking at it as to, can we partner with the chamber? Can we partner with other organizations and nonprofits to be able to get a little bit more money to be able to get the people that have the skill sets that we need?
We'll have all those groups go together, hire a person where everybody's adding money. So
We're
quality person.
we're right now in the conversation pieces of having those, like we're wanting to get together. All of us have agreed we need to get together and have a conversation about it. We haven't scheduled that meeting yet, but right now we're just sort of in that phase of like, we need to have these conversations.
Well, yes. Well, what it is this would be an ongoing contribution. Yeah. Whether it increases or any of that is up to future council to decide, but this would be the request from KNI would be an ongoing contribution.
My take is that should be something funded elsewhere through KEDC, but that we should fund it. That's my opinion on it.
I don't disagree with funding it. I think housing is a huge priority. I don't know if this is the best category.
Well, I can include it in the TIF, just knowing that, again, that because we have certain ongoing obligations already, that if we're not receiving sufficient TIF funds to fund these, plus fund the transfers to the debt service, that the reductions will be to the debt service.
Can we just
Well,
lower?
I mean, we can certainly,
I say tentative, like, in the groups meet first.
certainly. I mean, what I'll do is I'll make the, yeah, yeah, it's in there, and it's in there, and if it continues, then great. If there isn't an ability to find the intern or the fill the position, that, yeah,
That's just my thought.
That's fine. all
I
right.
think that it's potentially a good idea, but I don't know who wants the job.
And these are all different organizations, volunteer different organizations like tourism and
No, it would be
Main Street and all that.
So what it is the idea on the neighborhood initiative funding is that there are discussions with the school district. Who else do we have? We had the
So for instance, the Chamber and Main Street are, not, the Chamber and the school district have been having a conversation about hiring a marketing person. That would benefit the whole community, for instance. To be honest, we just don't allocate, as a community, we haven't traditionally allocated a lot of funds to community and economic development and housing. And so this is just sort of the first request to say, hey, if we think housing's our biggest issue, then why aren't we funding it? Is sort of from my perspective, I guess, but I believe in funding organizations that are supposed to bring revenue in and grow that revenue. If we want to have, if we're having conversations about how do we grow revenue, housing is that conversation.
When I feel like when we see that it's like a tangible, if everyone's at the table and they're all agreeing, I would hate to say yes here and the school says, I'm going to give $2,000, another group's going to give one. Who's going for that job sort of thing? What's it actually encompass?
Well, that's a question for Kay and I. And again, I think the initial thing is to hire an intern this year. Am I correct?
To be honest, like, if you don't have the money, you can't have the conversation.
But what happens to the money if no one wants a job?
Well, exactly. You don't use the money then.
Right.
And then you have a conversation about whether that comes back, is it clawback or not, or things like that.
That's why I said,
What
can
it
it
is
just
is-
be
what it-
tentative? Like, hey, it's in TIF. If you guys find somebody who's willing to do the job for this amount, knowing that it may not be funded next year.
Well, here's what it is until the money is needed, we could hold on to it. So if the position is filled, okay, we'll send over the money. If it's not filled, we'll keep the money and it'll just go back into the pot.
I'm good with that.
All right, but we're going to transfer that to TIF.
Okay.
Okay, so now our requests are down to 241,640. K-Play, what did you want to do with K-Play? Right. So what do we want to do with K-Play? Did we want to reduce that 10,000 and then say because our contribution as far as getting utilities and everything there are probably going to exceed that $10,000.
It's going to be a lot, I think.
Yeah. Sounds like we're already, I mean, we already mentioned, the staffing and
Yeah,
the
we're on the
electricity.
hook for running it.
I would be more in favor of them finding the $10,000 from another place, because we're going to be putting in a whole lot more than that in long term. And ours is not going to be a one time. I mean, if we're staffing it, we're paying for electricity, we're paying for the water. Ours is going to be an ongoing yearly expense already just in that. And what I understood when he was here, and I think I've got this right, all this really did was push them over the mark to do one project. They've got like three tiers or something like that. And this basically paid for the first one. So we're not even done, and
Their $10,000 ask put them up to the $90,000 that it's going to cost for the bathroom building.
I think we have to remember
And
too that
then,
K-Play's done a lot for the community.
The other
We have
project
to remember that. We
is
have,
their
they've
fence,
they've
which they
gone
didn't
together
ask
and
for
done a
any money
lot.
for.
So one of my questions is that if they don't get this $10,000 now, does it increase? I mean, just because we know increasing construction costs are constant, does it impact, when?
The other thing it impacts is they have a $25,000 grant that they have to spend. I don't know the exact date, but there's a date on that.
So they
that they
do
would
have
re-
actual grant, I mean, so this is the deal, is that it makes it so this project happens sooner in the aspect of that they do have that grant actually.
And then they
also,
don't lose that money.
but I just think about, like, if we don't give them that $10,000, then is it in 6 months, $10,000 more to do the project? Is my question too.
We give them 5,000.
Well, one of the things is their budget includes just building the bathrooms. It does not include what is necessary for us to get electricity, to get plumbing over there. What, the utilities to get over there? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what about 5, and then we see where we sit when we get through the rest of the lines? We haven't done tourism yet, so we don't know our bottom line yet.
Well, and what about the fence they're going to put around us?
They're not asking for
The
that
fence,
right
the
now.
fence,
That has
is- the
nothing to
fence
do with
is
this.
something
That's in
the
the
next
future.
phase that they would raise money for. That's one of their next phases.
Okay, well, because I know that was also, they're wanting to enclose the water. I haven't physically been to the thing since they have gotten it done. We don't have kids that age at this point. All of
So
ours
They
are
they
grown.
haven't asked for any money for the fence. The purpose of the fence is they've already had, what this thing was open for a month and they already had vandalism to it. The fence would be a self-locking fence on a timer. And they haven't sent me over any drawings for the building yet, but my idea for that fence is you tie the fence into the sides of the building. So the self-locking fence also makes it so there's no access to the bathrooms after hours, which will help our
Immensely.
personnel not having, and the police not having to do their night, going there and locking them at night, doing the checks on them as much. But yes, city staff will be running the sewer, running the water, contracting the electric to be ran to the building. We don't pay for water out there, which helps, but it's donated by the water department or the waterworks.
And like you said, staff as much. It's still going to need,
Well, we still have to,
Yeah.
I mean, the guys still have to mow around all this. We still have to, we're still gonna have to clean the bathrooms and
yes,
Do you
Cole?
need the, do
the
you
diapers
need
that
the,
get flushed.
do
Roger's
you
one.
need the full 10,000 to get to your,
It's not
Target.
me. Okay,
Well,
it's
the-
K-Point. But they need the 10,000 to get them to the threshold to
no,
build
no,
the
no,
structure.
no, for the budget? Do we need to cut the full 10,000 to get where we want this on our budget?
That's up to you guys. What it is our requests are right now are at 241,640. But we've only budgeted 135,940, right?
And you want a $10,000.
Well, if, the thing is like I said, is you don't, your requests actually have to be down to 221,640. Or, I'm sorry, 225,640, because we budgeted the 235. And that 230, and that 235 includes the $10,000 discretionary fund. So your contribution target is actually 225,640.
What's the
Unless you want to use the
275?
discretionary fund towards one of these projects.
What's the 275 number that we?
The
had?
275 number is the total estimated receipts. Okay? So if you're trying to, and this is what I heard earlier, is that we don't want to reduce the amount that goes to support the general fund. We want to be able to hit that 235,640 target. So then you can only have a maximum request of 225,640
Maintain this.
and to maintain the discretionary fund. Again, if you want to not have that discretionary fund, you can reallocate it. And then your target becomes 235 on the request.
So you need to cut somewhere around 26,000 out of this.
Presently, yes.
Just quick side note, do you like mail these checks to these groups or they come pick them up or something?
I'm sorry.
Do you mail the checks to these groups or they pick them up or
Both.
both? I'm just wondering if we could have some sort of letter or something in there that says that the council would like an update on like your projects or things throughout the year, just so that we're more aware if we aren't actually seeing them all the time.
So that's part of having them come in on an annual basis, but if you want, during the budget request, because they're supposed to give us an update on what they've used the money for. But if you want them to come on a more regular basis, such as quarterly or semi-annually,
Yeah.
we can request that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cole? We have a lease with Crown Castle for the tower at Tommy Park. Do you know when that expires? We have a lease with Crown Castle. Did they pay us monthly, annually? I was just wondering if there was something in the lease that we could negotiate or renegotiate, that they put some funding into the parks. Crown Castle, it's for the cell tower at Tommy Park.
Okay, so what it is there's the cell tower out there. And we do get lease from that. I would have to check the lease agreement.
Okay.
I don't know when it was negotiated or when it expires.
It wasn't negotiated very well, whoever did it, because all the co-leases on it, I don't believe get any funding off of that. And they're co-leasing constantly on that
Right.
tower.
And so when when cell companies tried to start finding more places to put their towers, this is a big discussion many years ago. You have to be careful because they're going to come in and lowball you. And they'll say, well, this is what we're paying elsewhere, but they're willing to pay more. So I will look at that lease and see. So I'll have to find it. It's probably somewhere in Laserfish. Okay. All right. So that could be a potential source of additional income, but not guaranteed at this point. So again, we're back to K-Play. Do we want to remove that 10,000? Do we want to cut it to 5,000?
I'd like to see us at least maybe lower it a little bit. I'm not trying to completely shut them off as much as, we're, like I said, we're already potentially $30,000-$40,000 into it. Just once they start the building and actually get the building up operational, if we do all of this as well. So I would like to at least maybe lower it some. I don't know if we need to drop it clear to 5, maybe 75, but they've worked and they've got the grants and they've gotten all that and they're right here. And I agree, K-Play has done a lot for the city. That's why I don't want to necessarily shut them off. I don't want to try to offend them as much as this is not going to be just a $10,000 benefit from the city. We're not going to spend, hey, here's a $10,000 check and we're out of it. We're going to be maintenance and electricity and staffing and all of that from now until the end of time, potentially. As long as it's operational, we're going to be involved in spending money there.
Right.
And so they need to understand that's also something the city is donating to them, basically. We're giving them that. We're not charging them for that. So they need to understand that's got to be kind of part of your capital request.
I'd be okay with 5.
So the suggestion right now is 5. All right, so 5. So we are now down to 236,640. And again, your target is 225. Historic preservation, 5,000.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. So then if we go back, the last one we had was at tourism. Again, there was 12,000 for the brochure, $7,500 increase for advertising, and $2,000 for the phone system.
I'm showing the brochures as it was 20,000 last year, and this year they want 33,450.
Yes,
So
but
there's-
12,000 of that was towards the according to their sheet, 12,000 as towards printing the new brochure.
What was the 1,450 for?
That I don't know. That wasn't specified
difference.
on their sheet. So whether it's an additional cost for
Like mailing it or something?
if they have advertising in, there's some state places that they can advertise that those costs have gone up. That I don't know. The only information they provided on that increase was the 12,000 for the brochure.
It just says brochures and distribution. So
Right.
I guess maybe the distribution part.
That could be.
Who does that now?
So again, the amounts in question are 12,000 for the brochure, 7,500 for marketing, and 2,000 for the phone system. But I hear the phone system is okay. So really, we're looking at 19,500 combining the marketing and the brochure.
So if we take the 12 for the brochure out, where does that put our bottom line?
If we take the 12, that puts us at, you're actually below your target of 225 because you'd be at 224,640.
Does that,
Perfect.
and does that include the 10,000 slush fund?
We
That
did
still
it.
leaves the 10,000 discretionary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so we'll remove that 10,000, that 12,000. Okay, can I suggest a break? My feet are getting tired.
Nope.
All right.
Okay, everybody, we got 5 minutes.
We're having fun now. Oh. Well, trying to get nickels and dimes. Of course, they do add up. Like I said, we argued one time for quite some time on string trimmers. Why are we even talking about this? We had a big discussion over the bulletproof vest one time. Hey, that's part of the equipment. I mean, you wouldn't send a cop out without a badge. You wouldn't send them out without a gun. Oh, well.
I gotta say, my legs are like stuck in that position. I've been sitting.
How easy it must have been when we had all them factories and you didn't have the M&E tax giveaway and all that. And the bridge, that diamond, they had millions of dollars.
What industry's gonna come back? You're gonna lose people instead of gain.
Well, we're losing we don't have a hospital. So the fire department and first responders, they just become very, very important. I mean, they can talk about volunteer fire department all they want. We can't get volunteers to do anything. Everybody in this town has sat around and, excuse my language, bitch and moan and groan and have everything given to them.
I'll be right back.
Hey, Kathy, I'm gonna go ahead and send an email out this afternoon to everybody. Saying you got the okay.
That's it. Keep in touch. Hey, everybody, it's been 5 minutes. Do we want to get back started, or are we just like kind of relaxed and feel better sitting here? Oh, you're missing the dance recital. Well, run and come back. Where's it at, over here? Run over there and come back.
We take 10 and then possibly use 25.
Yeah, why don't we do this? Why don't we just?
Here we go again, guys.
All right. So hopefully we can get through the rest of expenditures pretty quickly.
Cool.
The 5,000 for facade, are you still?
Oh, I'm sorry.
keeping that?
I'm sorry.
I
We
just
still
wanna
have
make sure.
5,000 for facade. Are you okay with that? Because we're still at our target.
Yeah, because that was part
Yeah.
of the target, yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah.
We're okay with that. So we're at our target. Okay, so when we get to building and zoning, this is operations for Pam's department, 166,975. The Ferris Hill building is the building that we own down by the river. And this is for electric and some general maintenance. When we get into the mayor and council, what you will see is where it says, okay, so mayor and council is 728, 702. Data processing, this is all of our annual and update costs for our accounting and other software in the general fund. Yeah, so that did the cost that went up? Hang on. What did I include in that? Hang on. No, I know that it's valid. I just have to find it here. Because I got about 8 million numbers that I'm working through, so.
Sorry, it just is almost double, so.
No, you're absolutely fine.
Does it include, oh no, it's not election.
Let me see here. All right.
Does our election cost change
Building
too with
zoning, here we go.
everyone up?
Looks like it's been fairly.
I just wondered if, because we have 6, I think, up this year. Yeah.
Oh, that is where we're paying the franchise refunds. So
Okay.
the projected franchise refunds are $347,700.
Okay.
Yes. We didn't have any other place to really put it, so we put it in mayor council.
Should that be a separate line item since it's going to be a recurring every year going forward?
It is a separate line item.
It is, okay.
It
it's
is,
just
it is
lumped
in
together
the
this
line
one.
item, it is.
Thank you.
Right now, you just got the total. So that
Thank you.
that was the only place we could really think of putting it. We didn't have an expense account somewhere else, so that's why it's in mayor council.
Okay. And then on elections, I believe is it 6 up this year? Because we have 2 appointments.
Yes, so on elections, I'm taking what the costs have been in the past.
Okay.
That's usually for the poll workers and the printing of the ballots.
I just didn't know if it would be more because of more
It
positions.
might not necessarily be more depending upon the cost.
Okay.
I can ask to make sure, clarify that, But yes, we do have 6 positions open because we have all of the even wards. John Helenthal's at-large is up, and then also the 5th ward because we had an appointment, and Councilmember Altman's at-large position because there was an appointment.
So is this where we have a conversation about whether we need 9 city council members or not?
We already had that conversation when the census numbers came in and the council wanted to keep the number of council members that we have.
Is the current council the same council that had that conversation?
With the exception of you and Dan, yes.
Okay.
At $2,400 a year. I don't
Well, I'm
know.
just talking about is representation, because we have 7 wards
Yeah.
and we have, you're just representing a very few people in each ward now, is what I'm saying. And we're the only community in the state of Iowa that has 9 city council members. Every other community has at most 7. It's just easier to get people to run for office when you might have less positions. Because how many of us are actually going to be running against anybody is,
If
I'm
we
just
did
saying,
that,
it's
we
just
would
a
have to
question.
change wards as well.
What?
Yeah.
We would
Right,
have to
what it is
reward the system as well. If we were going to do that, we'd have to.
Oh, yeah, that's
completely
easy, though.
rezone wards and
That just is
everything.
like done through a GIS map.
Right. But that was, but again, that was it during, if we want to change it, then, we would have to go through the process of recertifying the wards and recalculating based upon population. Yes, it's there's a program through the state that we used in order to get the distribution that we have now. We did have some problems in that there was some language that didn't match up with the language that the state thought we should have. But we got it worked through and we have the current system. It's easier doing it at a census year rather than midway through, but it can be done. Yeah, that could be something that would have to, that doesn't have to be on the ballot, but I think that is one that could, because it would be a change of government. So I'd have to look and see. Okay.
Just a thought, just because it's hard to find 9 city council members that are
Certainly.
wanting to do this job.
Right. Yeah. So the city attorney, we budget 130,000 each year. And I think that this year we will probably come closer to that, just simply because we do have union negotiations coming up, and they do charge us over 3 years. And this 4th year, we didn't get charged because we're in a 4-year contract. But we will have those negotiations starting at the end of this calendar year. So we want to leave that at 130 to cover any of those additional costs. The municipal building is the cost of running City Hall. We're still trying to make sure, based upon continuing budgets, but we believe that the 61,700 is accurate for this year. And going forward, we don't see it fluctuating a whole lot until we start maybe 10 years or 5 years or 6 years down the road needing any general maintenance. Yes.
Sorry, is the attorney city and Lynch Dallas or?
Yes, it's
Okay.
all attorney fees associated through the mayor council.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Insurance, we're taking a dramatic hit on insurance as ICAP still tries to recover from the derecho. So it continues to go up. Carrie told us to expect a 25% increase this year. Last year, we thought that the amount that we budgeted was sufficient, but they came in with a much larger increase. It wasn't 10%. So when you see the re-estimates, that is the cost that we got this year. Carrie is saying expecting 10,000 for the next year. What's hard to budget for is that bill does not come in until March, does not come in until March. So we have to take a shot in the dark on that and hope that we're close. Public TV, the cost there is just the cost that we have for the operator and any supplies or that we need in there. The other general government, that includes the $650,000 of the the waterworks insurance, and get there real quick. Yeah, but hang on a second. Okay, this is why I'm glad we go through this. I need to adjust that because I've got the franchise fee payout in two places.
Yeah. I thought that was
Yep.
a weird string.
This is why I'm glad we have do this review. So that actually is going to come down to 650.
Mayor council will go up.
Mayor
then.
counts? No.
No,
No, wait
it's
a
in
minute.
both places.
Oh, it's entered twice.
I think we
Yeah.
have it in two places in the line item budget as well. Yeah, because we have it under other general government, and then we had it under mayor council. So there'll be adjustment there of that amount for, mayor council will come down, general government will stay the same. We're going to, the franchise fees will be under other general government, but they'll not be paid out of mayor council, so there'll be a reduction in the mayor council.
So it should be more similar to the 379.
What's that?
Will the mayor council be more like the 379?
Yes, if you take out the amount for what I got here, let's see, that amount was. Yeah, hang on. So the council amount will be reduced by 347,700. And quite honestly, that might put us into a positive amount for the general fund.
So 381,002 for mayor council.
Yes. I apologize for that. Okay. All right. Road use tax fund. Operations for roadway maintenance are $846,642. Capital expenses are $200,000, and that is for the seal coat program. Snow removal, we have 106, 196
Will that change with the bond?
with the bonds. What I'm going to do is not for this coming year, but next year, any money that we took out of roadway maintenance for engineering, we will then pay out of capital funds, seal coating out of capital funds of that amount.
Okay.
Okay. What I want to do is see where we're at when it comes for bids and everything else, and then and what we have for engineering at the end of this fiscal year. Because that'll give me then how much I need to take out of the capital projects and the bond funds.
Okay.
Okay. Snow removal 106, 196. If we have a good years like we're having so far, we have plenty of salt and sand on hand. So it could be, we may not spend all of that. Street cleaning 36,323. And vehicle maintenance, 267,773 for a total in road use tax fund of $1,449,934.
Sorry.
On the salt and sand, even though you didn't use it, you still got to take what, 80% of what you ordered?
Yes. So what it is, um, what we'll do is that if we have an overabundance after taking that 80%, then next year what we'll do is we'll reduce our request.
But what you have over this year, and I hate to belabor this, you're gonna have to stockpile that, you're gonna have to cover it, because
We have a hoop building just for that.
Yeah.
Yep, we have a hoop building. Okay. So when we move to economic development, the housing and urban development of $300,000, that is the planning grant being paid for by the state. General economic development is contribution to KEDC and the Port Authority. Under under culture and recreation, that is the amount that we're budgeting for donations in and out for the benches, the trees. We made this again so that we're able to keep track of how much we have in donations and how much we have in expenditures rather than them coming out of the general fund.
Question about the 63.5. Is this where we want to add the 10,000 for Keokuk Neighborhood Initiative?
Yes, we would do that. Because that was the under hotel motel tax, that was coming out of TIF, so that'll actually be 73.5.
Does the council agree to that?
Yeah.
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 But we budget it. So.
Yeah. Okay. Non-program of $20,000. Let me check exactly there for you. If that is, nope, that's the library. The non-program. Where'd I have that? Because the library is 30. Back here. I will find that for you, exactly what that 20,000 is. I know it's something that I put in there, but again, I apologize. Oh, here it is. That's what it is. So what it is as we do our self-funding, sometimes the self-funding will pay for something that later on, or somebody will use their self-funding to pay for something that later on is not considered to be covered. So example, they may pay for a medical bill from last year that they didn't have any money for, and they try to pay for it in this year. So then what happens is then we have to provide a refund back to EBS. In the same respect, there is a revenue account of where we get rebates from them back in. In previous years, they were going in and out of the same expense account. So you would see a negative amount, or it was the revenue account. It was in and out. You see a negative amount in the revenue account. So we've eliminated that so that we can better track it. So we're estimating that refunds that we have to pay back to EBS are $20,000, and that there's about a $6,000 rebate coming back. Now, all that really is that, you know, we have a fund with EBS that they keep money in, and that we transfer to throughout the year to cover the self-funding portions. But when they pay for something that isn't supposed to be paid for, we do have to send that money back because they did expense it out.
This is like a flex card?
Yeah, it's like the flex card.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the employee's flex account.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, that was something to clear up a accounting procedure. So the transfers in special revenue funds, that is the money coming out of emergency fund, employee benefits, and hotel motel tax. Tax increment financing, the only thing we have there is the transfers out, and that is the total transfers for the year to all the other areas that we're sending it to, such as economic development and to cover those expenses and to the debt service. Library trust, the library is spending down some of their trust money in order to meet some of the expenses due to some of the budgetary cuts that have been imposed. The ARPA funds, 300,000 of the contractual services go towards the 600 block, so that if we get something going there, there's 300,000 for the 600 block, with 100,000 going specifically to 629 and the other 200,000 to the ones on Main Street. The other 100,000 is one half of our match for the $600,000 planning grant that, or the targeted neighborhood grant that was originally allocated to regional planning for housing rehab. So we're not changing the actual use, we're just changing how we're distributing it. Instead of going to Southeast Iowa Regional Planning, we're distributing it directly. Okay. And the transfer out of 150,000 goes to the general fund for dilapidated housing demolition. Debt service, we're at $3,124,927 in obligations for the upcoming year. That includes the converted revenue bonds and the interest only, 1 year interest only on the street bonds. Under capital projects, we budget $20,000 a year for the sidewalk program. Sidewalk program, we pay for concrete, they pay for the contractor. We have had some usage on it at times, but we've never met that $20,000 total. What you see in streets is the total budgeted amount or estimated amount at current estimates for South 18th. What we're hoping, that doesn't include the $960,000 in the earmark, and does not include the hopefully over $1 million, perhaps $1.5 million, $1.6 million that we can get in grants to pay for the water and sewer. And again, that is the preliminary estimate. That's what we have right now, is just the preliminary estimate. We believe that number to be significantly reduced when we get better estimates. The current estimate right now has a 20% contingency. Normally, the contingency is 10%, and that would cut several $100,000, Brian. About 400,000 from that. Also, they didn't know how we wanted to plan the street, whether it was going to be full width with the bike lanes and the parking, or if we were going to have shrink it all the way down to just 2 lanes of traffic or whatever. So the council did select the full width. So now they can start making better estimations based upon that. Okay.
All right.
So
It seems baffling. Why would we have 2 lanes?
what's that?
Why would we only do 2 lanes? I mean, why would we only fix the 2 lanes and not have parking?
You're right. And that's why,
I just thought it's like a,
yeah. And that's why one side parking.
okay, sorry. When
Yeah.
he said it, I thought it didn't make any sense.
Yeah,
that we
no,
would
no,
just have 2 lanes. and a
this is
curb.
this is full width with 2 bike lanes and 1 side parking.
But I think so that everyone on council is clear, when we get to these bottom lines, remember that the bond money is shown this year while the expense is shown
Correct.
next year.
Correct.
So
And and when we get down to the bottom lines, as far as the balance sheet, do remember that when we get there, that when it comes to the trail, we've already received $100,000. So that is part of what has to be.
I just know if you're looking just number to number, it looks very skewed.
I can't.
If
Oh,
you're
yeah.
looking just number to number, it looks
Yeah.
like
Right.
we're way overspending and we are not.
Right. And so that is something that we do have to remember. The cemetery streets, as I explained, is our portion of paying for the concrete. The Development Center, we're projecting expenses right now of $90,365. We're hoping to manage some of that and do some things to help reduce the utility costs, which is really driving things. So we will continue to look at that. When we get to wastewater treatment, the operations for the pollution control plant are at 1.5 million. Sewer maintenance operations are at 853,450. There are, the debt service has been removed. There are no capital projects other than the, under WPC, the 1.6 million there is bond money that we already have. And that's hopefully to get in the sludge dryers. It may not happen this year, but we'll probably have some engineering expense if we go that route. There is the $250,000 transfer to the general fund in support of the general fund. Many communities will do what they call a payment in lieu of taxes type of thing and take money from or transfer money from water and sewer. If you happen to have an electric utility or a communications utility, they'll do the same. So that is not something that is unusual. Refuse collection operations. In the operations of picking up their garbage, it's $924,612. Leachate control is $13,300, and that is based upon the engineer's contract to us to do the annual testing. Excuse me. They believe the annual testing is going to go way down because of things that we've done out there and continue to do in order to control the leachate. And so then they also have debt service on the 2 new trucks of $82,420 with a total disbursement of $1,020,332. Any questions on the proprietary budgets? Okay. I'm sorry, we still have Bridge. Bridge, we have operations total of $526,437. We pay the regional transit of $8,000 and total disbursements of $534,437. Okay. So when we break it down by expenditures by fund, again, the general is going to be different. That's going to be below $12 million. Special revenues, $6,312,125. TIF, $909,436. Debt service, $3,124, $3,124,927. Capital projects, $4,340,365, and proprietary of $5,918,520. And again, that total, when you get down there, is going to be reduced by close to $350,000. Right. So when we get to public safety or expenditures by function, public safety, again, 5.9 million. Public Works, 2.3 million and change. Culture and Recreation, 2.871. Community and Economic Development, 934,000. General Government, 2.255. Debt Service, 3.124. Capital Projects, 4.340. Business Type Activity, which is the proprietary funds, 5.668. And transfers out, which equal our transfers in, $5,211,130. Okay. All right. So as we talked about, we have our transfers, and you can see where the money is going out of TIF. We transfer $723,744 to debt service. We transfer to economic development $62,900 to support KEDC, and it says urban renewal, but that's actually the Port Authority. We transfer $122,765 to cover the cemetery roads and the expense for the development center. Employee benefits and emergency levy, we transfer $229,788 to road use tax. From the employee benefits and emergency, we're going to transfer $2,345,416 to the general fund for those expenses. And that is actually more than what we're bringing in because, again, we're using some reserves in order to help keep the debt service down a little bit. Local option sales tax, we're transferring $1,300,000 to the general fund. What I will tell you is that if we start seeing those revenues coming in greater, we'll make an amendment next year and increase so we get the total amount of local option sales tax that comes in the fiscal year into the general fund to support it. ARPA funds, $150,000 to the general fund for dilapidated housing. Sewer, $250,000 to support the general fund. From general to bridge, the local transit system property tax. And the park improvement reserve from park improvement reserve to general of $18,487 for the Rand Park playground repair. So again, our total transfers there are $5,211,130. Okay. All right, so I need to reduce okay. So when we look at the balance sheet, and again, we're going to have some changes there. And I gave you an updated sheet, which I have here, that included the change in the capital projects fund, where I had doubled up on the bond revenues. What's not included in there is the $347,000 reduction in expenditures in the general fund, so that $252,386 is actually going to be now a positive number. And understand that once you do the math on that, that $100,000 of the expenditures is from money already received for the trail. So whatever that number comes out to be, know that there's another 100,000 in operational funds still available.
Or positive in the general fund.
So we would be positive in the general fund.
Tell all of your friends.
Of about 100,000?
So
More than
yeah,
that,
of
almost-
about 100,000, but again,
Almost 200.
well, no, 347
Yeah.
minus the 252 will give us what our positive balance is, knowing that another 100,000 is being spent out of reserves intentionally. So for the operational side, for what could be used for operational, yes, we will have 200,000 plus or minus in excess that could go towards operations.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know.
No, it's
Something's picking up.
Not an alarm.
No, it was the speakers.
Speakers? Okay.
Yeah. You're not crazy.
No. And then special revenues, yes, we're reducing that. Some of that is the 400 or 300,000, 400,000 of that is for, or 100,000 of that. Okay, let me get this right. What we're spending in ARPA funds is part of that, and the money that we're spending for transferring to the general fund to buy down the debt service a little bit. So when you see that there, that's what's included in that. So the ARPA funds was out of that was $7,550. So that's where that's coming out of. So the remainder of that is reserves that we're spending in order to keep down the tax levy just a little bit. In TIF, that amount there will change to $1,614 as an estimated ending, based upon the 10,000 that we're going to increase to KEDC for KNI. In debt service, we try to keep around we try to keep a little positive balance in there, but that can be an in and an out. So the balance in general fund comes out to be projected to be $7,331. Capital projects, the bulk of that is because of the bond funds. So that there's that. Now the bond funds will be kept separate because right now we do have a negative balance in the capital projects fund. I'm trying to find ways to get that out of a negative balance, but the bond funds will be tracked differently. So the full amount of the bonds will be paid, or full amount of the street improvements will be paid from those bond proceeds. Okay. Again, you see the permanent fund. We have $511,671 projected at the end of the year that we probably cannot spend.
And there's nothing we're allowed to spend that on. We're just required by law.
As far as I remember, no. Now they might have changed something to where we might be able to, but that really is supposed to be kept as an insurance fund in case we go bankrupt. Sewer will show an ending balance of $2,781,108. When you see that there is a difference of 1.5 million there, do remember that we have the bonds that we're spending on a capital project. Refuse, we're projecting 138,796 as an ending balance. For bridge, we're projecting a ending balance of $1,749,601. And again, that is $224,000 deficit in trying to maintain the bridge and the personnel in there. Where you see the unallocated, that is the difference between what the waterworks sends us, is supposed to send us, and haven't sent us at the end of the fiscal year. So the reason why there's that balance is that we have to catch up on some of the payments in some of the cost in June and July. And so I put that in there so that it gives an ending balance that corresponds to what's on the accounting system. But when you see that there, don't be worried about it because that'll be made up at some point and become either a slightly positive balance or a zero balance. It all depends upon how payments come through. What I did do is break out some of the special revenue funds so that you can see where the some of the balance comes from. So you see that in park maintenance and improvement, again, we've got $234,604 there at the end of the year. And, when we're getting donations of $500, $1,000 for trees and benches, that's added up over the year that haven't been transferred over. So using those reserves for projects that have been paid out of the general fund and transferring those over is not out of line. Also, again, we have set up separate revenue and expenditure items so that it can be tracked specifically out of that fund. Park equipment, public works equipment replacement, we've got $12,801. That was set up way before I got here, but that's the balance. That is something that if we do have something in public works, we can always expend that reserve. The employee benefit has a projected reserve of 666,395. And it's 130,000 that I'm transferring over, not 193. So it's 130,000 in reserves that we're using to buy down the debt service. The reason why there's a balance there and 100% is not getting transferred over is that when the state started the rollback or the backfill, when you calculated the property taxes necessary to pay the current health and benefits, if you put in the backfill amount, it reduced your levy. So then you'd have to refigure and get to that right amount. So what it is previous budgets did not include that backfill amount, and we built up a reserve. What I do each year is I have a worksheet that I get from the Department of Management now that allows me to put in those different amounts that we're supposed to get back from backfill and now the business tax credit, so that it gives me a more accurate what I need from property tax. And so you don't see that reserve building. The money necessary to go to the general fund goes to the general fund. And we try to take as much of it off the property tax based upon those additional revenues. And that's the same with the emergency levy. Before, they were not calculating in the backfill amount. I do that now. That does not affect the levy rate because that is capped at 27 cents per thousand. So once I calculate what the backfill, the remaining backfill is, and the business tax credit, that becomes the amount that is transferred over to the general fund. Local option sales tax, we have an ending balance of 810,516. Again, I don't know why there was a reserve in there to begin with, but whatever we bring in a year, I transfer over to the general fund so they get the full support. And in the pool reserve of $1,070. So when you see under special revenues for those different ones, we have a balance of almost $1.847 million. Road use tax, you see an ending balance of 893,812. You know, we're using up more expenditures in the current year because of the engineering costs for South 18th. And in future years, whatever those engineering costs are at the end of the year will be paid out. We'll pay the seal coating projects out of the bond funds or the bond funds and the earmark. Okay. So any questions? All right. Let me grab a drink of water here. The next summary I have, is by calculating this, the cost of per employee, so that you get an idea of what each department has for just wages and benefits. So when you walk through here, and again, you have to remember that the cost per employee includes wages, any possible overtime, or it's the budgeted wages, it's the budgeted overtime, and it's the budgeted benefits. So in police department, the average employee costs $103,329.30. In fire, it's an average of $105,194.53. Housing, because we only have one employee, the cost is $74,747. Animal control, there is some part-time wages in there. Or no, we didn't include the part-time wages, did we? They're down at the bottom. Yeah. So again, one employee, $70,753. The average public safety employee cost is $102,793.48. Public works. Okay, so now here's where you start seeing some fractions, because we pay for portions of Brian's salary, Annette's salary, and Jason and John's salaries out of different departments, and in some cases, different funds. So we have one employee at the airport. His cost is $89,751. In Public Works, we pay for 1.75 FTEs out of the Public Works general fund budget. And the average cost on that is $88,283. So Public Works average cost is $88,816.73. So in Culture and Recreation, again, Parks and Cemetery, portions of those are paid out of different departments and in some cases different funds. So in Parks and Cemetery, both of those have 2.25 FTEs, and the 0.25 is the superintendent in both those cases, because his salary comes out of 4 different places. So the average in Culture and Recreation, including the library, is $73,261. Building and Zoning, in this case, this is a portion of Annette's salary and Pam's total salary. So the average there is $100,177. Oh, not, no, Building and Zoning, whose salary comes out of that? Be yours, right? Oh, okay. So the total community, okay, so there we go. The community development subtotal, there we go, is $100,177. So I'd subtotaled that. When we come to administration, this is mayor council. This is everybody paid out of the mayor council line items. So we have 2.84 FTEs with an average cost of $94,032. So in the general fund, we have 65.26 FTEs with an average cost of $97,025. In the street department, we have 11.08 FTEs. Again, part of other people's salaries come out of the road use tax fund that are not directly in the street department. And the average cost on the street department employee is $78,069. For the proprietary funds, the enterprise funds, we have 24.66 employees with an average of $87,278. So in the grand total, we have 101 FTEs with an average cost of $92,565. We also put down the cost of part-time employees within part-time and temp within different departments, and the cost and benefits for those as well. If you want, this could be the time that we have a discussion on salaries, because we are discussing the cost of employees.
Councilperson Mike Greenwald had to run for 10 minutes, and he asked if we could wait on that discussion when he gets back.
Okay, that's fine. We'll come back to it. What I then did is I put into some charts and graphs some different information. What I did find out, because the last time I worked in Iowa, the 100% valuations were on the state budget form. They changed that, and I didn't realize it. So where you see fiscal years, the first 3 fiscal years up there, first 4 fiscal years up there, I was actually using the debt service amount. So I've eliminated those from my chart later on, other than the taxable valuations. So then I got the correct information for the 100% valuations. And so then going down, you'll see how our 100% valuations compare to our taxable valuations. And as the 100% have gone up, there has not necessarily been a corresponding increase in the taxable valuations. A lot of that due to, again, the rollback and what we can tax upon. You will see a reduction in 1 year from 652 to 646. That is when they started removing multifamily housing out of commercial and into residential. So that's where you see that reduction. And then I also have the corresponding levy rates. So this graph shows, again, the disparity between taxable valuations and 100% valuations. You see the 100% valuations has a good upward trend. You will see that the taxable valuations are extremely flat. And, you know, the council had asked for some projections. I'm still willing to do those projections for the next 5 years, but they're only going to be as good as the paper they come printed on, because there are multiple bills in the state legislature now that are addressing property tax reform. And so I do not know how those would affect us and if they're going to get passed or when they're going to get passed. The next one is our levy rate. There is a significant increase in our levy rate this year, from 1895 to 23.05. So that is a $4 per thousand increase due to the conversion of funds from, or the debt service from revenue to general obligation. Now, the revenues excluding debt proceeds and transfers, where does it all come from? You'll see that the biggest portion of 29% comes from property tax, and that's all property tax, including debt service and employee benefits levies and the general fund levies. The next biggest portion is the intergovernmental, that we're getting road use tax out of that, any of the M&E, or not M&E, but the replacement tax, the tax credit rebates. The next one is, next one down there is charges for services, of course, with the bulk of that being in the proprietary funds. So then the expenses by program. The largest expense is public safety with 21%. The next largest is business type activities. Again, that's the proprietary of 20%. After that, you go 16%, which is capital projects. Next largest one is debt service with 11%. And then 10% is culture and recreation. 9% is public works. And the remainders, general government of 8% and 5% for community and economic development. So then our general fund expenditures by program, you see that the largest expenditure is public safety, with others coming in there. Where you see that zero amount, that is health and social services. We don't spend anything that we categorize as health and human services. So there's that $0 sign there. So our revenues versus expenditures in the general fund over the last two budgeted years and are projected. You'll see that in fiscal year 21-22, our expenditures exceeded our revenues But when you come in the actual, and a lot of this is due to timing on projects and capital projects and other expenses. So in 2021, both our revenues and our expenditures were reduced, but our revenues exceeded our expenditures. For the current fiscal year, we projected a slight positive income for over expenses, so our revenues exceeded our expenditures. In the reestimates, you'll see that revenues go above the expenditures, and you can't look at that last line because of the changes we made today. Revenues versus expenditures on the total. What you will see is that in the actual and the reestimate, again, it depends upon how we're shifting and how projects finish out, whether they're getting finished out in the current year or we budget them for the current year and something gets delayed. But generally, we've been bringing in more revenues than we've expended. And again, that for the budgeted fiscal year 2023-24, that'll change. Our property tax by funds, the largest amount comes to the general fund. The next one to special revenues. And what you can say is that the special revenues get transferred to the general fund, so you can add those two together. And then debt service is the last place for property tax. So the next one that was added last year was property tax collections by governmental entity. And because I don't have what everybody is projecting right now, this is for the current fiscal year. I can't update this chart until everybody certifies their budget. But you'll see that where you see Keokuk Incorporated, that is the city, we're 43% of the tax bill for citizens in Keokuk. The school district is 35%. The county consolidated is 18%. The community college is 3%. The county assessor is 1%. And then several of the others are below 1%. So in capital projects, one thing that I didn't include in the capital projects is the road project, so I will have to add that. I was concentrating on general fund and some of the other departments. So you see that as we go through, I'm keep rolling back and forth. I'm not letting you see that. So in each of the different departments, you see where they're requests, what the requests are for the amounts, and what is the funding source. So other than housing of the 150,000 coming from ARPA, the airport where we're getting grants and he's using from his operation funds. The Grand Theater is donations. Parks is grants and donations. Once you get there, those are the ones in the being paid for out of the general fund. They're coming out of operational funds. So when you look at this, you take the police department, the fire department, and animal control, and those are being taken out of operational funds, not out of a dedicated source. The cemetery, the 30,000 for the roads, road use tax, the 200,000 for the seal coating. Economic development has the pilot grant, and water pollution control has bonds of proceeds, and this is hopefully for the sludge dryer. So our capital expenses, excluding South 18th, are $3,944,248,000. And the only equipment that we're buying this year is large capital equipment. is the squad cars. Otherwise, otherwise the capital equipment is smaller items, such as, software, computers, vests.
What about the software for the other departments? Where does that come out of?
Those are coming out of their operational funds.
Okay.
So. Okay. I don't want to go through the state budget forms, and I do not want to go line item by line item unless you really want me to. So that brings us back to the salary discussion. And what I do have here. Okay. So on your screen is the spreadsheet that was presented at one of the other budget sessions with some of the alternatives. What is not included in there is any additional costs for retirement. We've already sent out the max tax levy. So if we do increase salaries, we can't increase the levy. So any increase in those benefit costs will come from reserves.
I wanted to see higher, of course, but I did respond that I'd like to see at least the 5,000 when you sent these out.
So you're looking at the 5,000?
Yep.
Per employee. All the employees on there or specific ones? Because there was some, because there was some discussion of just certain ones, but you would do the entire. Okay,
And are those just the ones on the spreadsheet in front of us?
correct. Which would be those grouped within those classifications. So each one is broken down by classification of where they are on the wage and salary
Mhm.
ranges.
And then is there anything being proposed or discussed about all those that fall underneath within the departments as well?
The discussions that, the reason why this proposal came forward is this was a discussion that the mayor and I had, and that we would look at these this year and then follow up in the next years.
Okay.
I think department heads, or I'm hoping that they'll be active in that conversation at the budget time too, when looking at the budget to compensate those underneath them.
For the other ones?
Yes.
Well, I know at the last budget meeting when this came up, I had said I'd love to give raises, but where's the money going to come from? Because at that meeting, we had a negative $250,000
Correct.
balance in the general fund. But now knowing that we've got a surplus this coming year of 105,000, I am also all in favor of what Rosalind is proposing of the $5,000 increase. We've got the money.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Any other discussion?
You want me to, or do you want to do it? Well, we do have a person at City Hall besides this group that has stepped up what she does. And I also think that she falls in the category of the two people, the two secretaries at the police department that have been here a lot less time. And she's been here a lot longer time, does basically the same stuff, and has kind of been slighted as we go. So I'm not sure that Amy Barnes, who is our data clerk, doesn't need to be added to this list. I don't know that 5% is what we need to give her, but the 2 point, and I don't know what it would be if she, to bring her up to at least where the other group categories are.
I don't want to sound negative because I agree. I think that's an intricate situation that she's a part of. I do think that it's probably within City Hall's budget and her superiors can absolutely give her a raise. I don't know that she is in this group necessarily. Do you get what I'm
I
saying?
think she would be happy, just to be bumped up.
I
to
agree.
right around 40,000, which is like
I agree.
1,800 to 2,000.
And I think that that is in the city budget, and I don't know why her superiors
You don't
cannot.
think it's in this group we're talking about right now?
I
No,
meant
no,
like,
it's
as a
not.
category, she's not
I don't know.
Okay.
Right.
in this one, but I don't know why it couldn't be found in that budget currently, because like you said, it's a very small amount.
Yeah.
Get rid of someone's printer.
Yeah, it certainly can. I will comment that was one of those, that she was one of the positions that was found to be below the bottom salary. And so then when we did the salary adjustment, it was a 5% increase or whatever got them to 5% above the bottom. I can't remember which one she got, but she did get that extra
She only got
bump
to
at
5%
that
of the
time.
bottom. So I think.
And I
she
think
needs
that's
a
the one
raise.
raise in 7-8 years.
Well, it's the one extra raise.
Yeah.
One
Above
And
extra
I
raise.
will say, like, she has stepped up,
She
I
has.
think she's taken on more, than she has in the past. But
So when we hired the the secretary or administrative assistants for the police department, did we do that with the salary study in mind?
At that time, I don't think the salary study was done.
I wasn't sure when it happened, so, okay. I was just curious because they
I
got
think
hired
it
on more than
wasn't-
she is.
It was in place after the first one was hired, or like it took place after the first one, and then it was in place when the second one was.
But
I think it was early 2020 because
Yeah.
I was on the council at that time.
but the recommended salary was within the salary range.
Yes.
Correct.
And still on the low end.
So she's been with the city for 6 years and she's making less than the other two that just got hired on in the last 3?
Correct.
That's not right.
Okay, so we agree on
Then we just did the same thing with a 10 over 211s. And you just said that's not
That
right.
she's
right?
making, no, what I'm saying is though that like she was increased to 5% of the bottom. Where are you guys at in the range?
I know I'm not at 98%.
So but then it's been 3 years since we've had the study done too. But what I'm saying is though it's been 3 years since the study's been done.
correct.
Well,
And
this is one of
and-
those things where I feel like the department head in the police department's stance, the department head figured out how to pay them what they felt was respectable within their budget. This wasn't something else, which is why I'm saying I don't believe that she's a part of this. If that department head feels like she should be compensated more, find it in your budget.
When the data clerk was hired, it was based upon, of course, the salary of what the previous person was getting, wages at the time, because we didn't have a salary study, and we didn't have wage scales. So they fell into the trap of getting hired with, only incremental raises based upon cost of living each year. And that's part of the problem, is that somebody gets hired 20 years ago at what was a decent wage then, but they only get the incremental raises. So if to get us home, so because we can so we're going to do the $5,000 for each of the ones that are listed here, plus the amount for the data clerk. It's Celeste. Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think that if we've already had someone express that, a couple of people express that they really want to do this because there is money there. But I think we have to go into it with, we're doing this for these guys this year. Next year, we're doing it for the next group that's down, we'll try to do higher for them than the 2.5%. And then the third year, I think it has to be a 3-year plan. I don't think we can just say, well, this year we're going to do this and then not have that 3-year plan that says, you guys, we agree that everybody deserves something, everybody deserves a raise. This is where we're starting. Next year we're going here, and the next year we're going there. And I think we have to stick to it.
I'd like to see more than even 3 years. And I'm not saying large bumps each year, but at least some sort of step process in that personnel policy or something within departments that you're saying, you have a 6-month probationary period. At a year, you're getting this, 2
Right.
year, something as an incentive.
Well, at one time, and the conversation died because of a variety of reasons, but there was a proposal of having incentive pay as part of their annual review. Whereas if they met certain standards, if you got a certain score, you get the 2.5 no matter what, but you could earn up to another 2.5. So as I continue to review the personnel policy, I'll look at bringing that forward as a proposal.
I mean, I think that's great. And I think department heads are on board with making sure that they have the best quality candidate and someone who is working hard. So may as well compensate them for it.
Sure. Okay.
And not necessarily does it have to be 5% every year. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
If I'm going to get 2.5% and somebody that's worked harder or has been there longer or something gets 3%, I should understand that.
Right. That's fine. So, one of the things is I'll make the changes that are necessary. We will have a work session April 6th to go through this. We'll either have to have a work session or I'll have to do it during the regular meeting because you do have to pass the resolution for the proposed or for the certification of the tax levies. You do have to pass that at the next meeting. So it's up to you if you want me to make the presentation before you vote on that or after, because as part of the certification, you're adopting the proposed budget. These changes won't take me won't take me long. I can have them out to you, the new budgets and summary out to you Monday afternoon. So you decide or give me some direction if you want to do it and then have a work session. Because what I'll do is for the general public who might not have, I'm trying to get my, all right. It's going to shut off my monitor, so that doesn't matter. What I want to be able to do is have another presentation for the general public as part of a council meeting because we do get more views on our council meetings than we do on our budget sessions. Certainly. I won't go through each of the departments. I will do much more of my summary rather than that. I wanted to go more in depth with you because certainly this is the time for you to ask questions.
So one quick question though, with this salary study, are we going to update it? Because it's been 3 years.
I have sent out to all the comparables the exact same questions that were sent out with the original study. My response rate has been about the same as what they got. And I have got that information. I just have not compiled it just yet because I've having to work on this first.
So my curiosity is also about the grades. I think it's sort of weird that the community development director, when you have usually a department of 4 in most communities and we have a department of 2, that she's doing more than just being a community development director. She's also the planning and zoning administrator. She has other different duties that usually fall underneath 2 different positions. I think that's a conversation. And then with the public works directors, I'm curious if that's actually a one-on-one comparison as well as to how sometimes different roles of public works directors.
So I didn't get the last part about the public works director. So I'm gonna come over.
Well, I was just curious about the community development director, for instance. In most communities, that the positions that she's filling is 2 positions. So I was curious about if that grade is actually a comparable to other communities. And then also with the public works directors are often, there's different kinds of duties that depending on the community. And I was curious if when we're doing these grades and we're looking at comparing different positions, are we actually doing a one-to-one comparison? Or are we just looking at titles and making the assumption of what job duties are?
Shelley, if my memory serves me correctly, I think we looked at duties and responsibilities.
Correct.
To compare it that way as opposed to job title when we did that
Right.
study.
So the survey that's sent out has a description of what we believe of what we do here. And then they're supposed to match it up as best they can. So in some cases, what it is they won't have a position that matches up to us. So then it's not included. Other times what they'll do is say the title's different, but these match the duties.
And
I also, in that, in this scenario, would say that throughout the years, and it's in front of us what the range is and all that, but throughout the years, because I was there, throughout the years, our community development director was left out a lot and promised. One year, the community development director and the code enforcement and the two people upstairs were promised and never came back to. So we have to kind of look at it that way. She's been put on the back burner a long time.
And maybe just to clarify for Councilman Altman, part of that process, at least at the police department, we actually sat down with the individuals doing the survey and talked to them about our responsibilities and our duties so they could properly categorize where we need to fall.
Yes, everybody.
And that's not to say that some duties haven't been added over the last
Right.
3 years or whatever since the survey's been done.
I have a question for Chief Baum. Being the relatively newcomer that you are, when you were hired, just refresh my memory, because I believe the city made an offer to you of a certain dollar amount, and then part of that offer had a raise factored in some months down the road. Is that the way that it transpired?
Right. So what it is he was scheduled to get the standard 2.5 July 1, and then an additional 2.5, provided that he's met certain goals and is performing well. So we have budgeted the 5% in, but I
Okay.
believe the $5,000 increase is actually more
Sure.
than the 5%.
So with our conversation, though, I just want to make sure that we're all aware that this 5,000 is in addition to that and not in lieu of that, correct?
No, what he's saying is it's in lieu of that, not in addition.
That's what Cole's, or
That-
that's what this?
That's what he just said.
Right. The 2.5 is already built in.
Right, but then he had that additional two.
He had that
and a half.
additional 2.5. And with the $5,000 increase, that is not, according to these calculations, that is not, the $5,000 increase is not additional to the 2.5 on my worksheet.
The
So-
salary currently on there is what I was hired at.
Correct. yeah.
So the $5,000,
So the $5,000 is, $5,000 is $5,000, not 2.5 plus 5,000.
Correct. So, but I just want to make sure I'm on the same page here because going through this exercise, I did not look at this as altering his hire agreement. So
Okay.
this 5,000 is more an adjustment and not in place of that additional
Okay,
2.5
so-
come.
So
that
the,
review
so the scheduled increase was $4,000. So you want the 5,000 plus the 4,000. Okay. What's that? Everyone is scheduled for a 2.5% July 1. That is what you need to tell me. If it's 2.5 plus 5,000, so you want 2.5 plus 5,000. Okay.
Well, because I think the 5,000 just gets them to where they should have already been,
That's fine.
personal opinion. And then that doesn't mean, oh, well, we just gave you, so you don't get the annual raise because we just basically put you where you were supposed to be in the first place. So
Sure.
yeah, to me, it's 5,000 now, come July 1st, whatever we do citywide, they should be included in that as well, because that would be, to me, that would be the right thing to do.
All right. In July. Yes. No, you take the Celeste.
No,
Celeste, what we'll do is we'll take the current salary. It will take it times 1.25 and then add the 5,000. Yeah, so you do the percentage increase first and then add 5,000.
You said a 25% increase, not a 2.5%.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Yeah,
With the right math, yeah.
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 Yeah. I tried, guys. I tried. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, hopefully, it might be Tuesday before we get this out, because Celeste has to go in, do her calculations on the salary and benefits. I have to make my changes, when she's done with that, so, yeah. And, because we have an extra Thursday in March, you'll get extra time to examine this once it's all put together.
Is there any case that the state legislature is going to pass any more laws that are going to impact the budget season?
Yes, but I can't tell you what the effects are because they are not companion bills in the House and Senate, so I'm not sure which one is coming out. I will tell you that they have a bill in there for the 411 system that is going to be hard to calculate the cost on that because it adjusts. What it does is it doesn't increase our contribution cost, but increases our potential liability for disability costs. It basically allows employees a longer time once they've retired to be able to come back for because there's a ordinary disability, which is something that was not connected to work related, and there's accidental disability. And the accidental disability is work related. So it gives them some extra time to come back and be able to apply for an accidental disability. When that happens, the city is then responsible for all medical costs related to that disability. We're very fortunate in that right now, Wellmark allows us to buy a single insurance plan for employees that are on an accidental disability, and then we reimburse them for any deductibles, co-insurance, co-pays that are incurred directly towards that disability. Again, this bill expands the ability to get that accidental disability. It provides some other changes. So what it could do is that if we have an accidental disability, is increase our cost for that employee plus buying the insurance, and as the insurance goes up. And then the property tax bills, they're still out there. They're making some changes. I expect one of them to get through, probably the Senate. They still haven't come up with a good formula to give it to us. What I'm expecting is once it passes, the Department of Management will give us a formula that we can just plug our numbers into. What I've been told is that if you're a fast growth city or a slow growth city, it's probably not going to help you. If you're in between, the tax bill might actually help you get some more revenue. We're in that slow growth category. I still don't know what the effects are. And that's why I said I can do the projections, but if the legislature at some point is going to make the changes and those projections aren't going to be worth anything. Anything else?
So the tax levy increased from, what did you say again? It was
Approximately 1895 to 2305. There's numbers after numbers after the decimal point.
And that's going to be consistent for the next how many years?
Well, it's probably going to be consistent or slightly increase till at least 2027, I think is when the next big one rolls off. 27, 2028. I don't have the debt service in front of me here. Any other questions? Mayor?
Okay, no questions? Everybody ready to go home? Let's go.